Before we start, the name will be on the top of your screens. Sometimes life becomes much easier the moment a person stops expecting anything from anyone. For Lady Nicole, that lesson arrives in the form of a bouquet. Her fiancé approaches with flowers in his hands, and her eyes immediately brighten. She asks if they are meant for her. His answer crushes that little spark before it can even grow. He casually explains that he gave the same flowers to Princess Caroline earlier. They looked beautiful on her, so he thought they would probably suit her as well. Nicole's mouth falls open. She simply stands there, staring at him as another piece of her hope quietly shatters. From that moment on, something changes. No matter how thoughtless he becomes or how often he places Caroline before her, Nicole stops expecting anything. If he wants to follow his own path, then she will follow hers. The Academy soon holds another soirée, one of the many events designed to prepare young nobles for high society. The grand hall fills with elegant couples, most of them attending with their fiancés. Those without partners usually bring a relative or close friend. Nicole, however, arrives alone. Among aristocrats, engagements are common even before students enter the academy, so a young noblewoman without a partner quickly becomes a target for gossip. Two girls nearby whisper about her and laugh at the sight. They call her pitiful and claim it is no surprise because she could never compare with Princess Caroline. Caroline is beautiful, intelligent, graceful, and admired by practically everyone. Even Lord Chaos, Nicole's own fiancé, seems completely captivated by her. As Caroline's childhood friend and fellow student council member, he spends most of his time by her side. He even dreams of becoming her knight someday. Unfortunately, that leaves his actual fiancé waiting in the background like forgotten furniture. Nicole has always known that Chaos favors Caroline, but lately, even the little attention she once received has disappeared. When they first become engaged, they exchange letters and occasionally meet for tea. Those small gestures at least give Nicole something to hold on to. Eventually, even those disappear. Chaos stops replying to her messages. He declines her invitations. Whenever Nicole tries to talk things through, nothing changes. She slowly realizes that chasing his attention only leaves her exhausted. So she finally gives up. If his heart and attention belong somewhere else, she has no reason to keep waiting for him. With her expectations firmly buried, Nicole leaves the soirée and heads home. Along the way, she hears everyone talking excitedly about the upcoming traders' market. The famous event takes place during the next break, and noble ladies eagerly look forward to visiting it with their fiancés. Nicole, however, has no intention of inviting Chaos. Last year's market left her with little more than frustration. While browsing an accessory stall together, he spends almost the entire time thinking about Caroline. When Nicole points out that he seems more interested in the princess than in her, he becomes irritated and tells her not to make a fuss over something so insignificant. He even reminds her that he supposedly gives up sword training that day just to spend time with her. Eventually, they part ways, leaving Nicole quietly fighting back tears. Yet despite the painful memory, one thing from that market still lingers in her mind. She remembers a beautiful bracelet made from a stone that flashes with rainbow-colored light. People say wearing one brings happiness, and matching bracelets have become especially popular among young couples. Nicole wonders whether the merchant will return this year. Later, when she arrives home, her mother asks whether she has invited Chaos to the market. Nicole admits that she has not. Her mother advises her to send him a letter soon. Nicole agrees, even though she already knows what will probably happen. She dreads another awkward encounter, but the market only comes once a year. More importantly, she genuinely wants to go. Then, as she thinks about it, a surprisingly simple question crosses her mind. Why does she even need a fiancé to enjoy the market in the first place? She realizes there is no rule saying she needs a fiancé to enjoy the market. Families, friends, and plenty of other people will be there, so she can wander wherever she pleases. Better yet, he can spend as much time as he wants with Princess Caroline. With that thought, Nicole gathers her things and sets off with newfound confidence. If Chaos is free to follow his own path, she can certainly follow hers. When the traders' market finally arrives, she heads into town alone. The streets are bustling with families, groups of friends, and, naturally, enough couples to make her decision feel slightly rebellious. Still, she makes her way through the crowd and steps into an accessories shop. She admires the colorful bows until the shopkeeper notices she is alone and asks whether she needs any help. Nicole hesitates before admitting that she came by herself. Instead of judging her, the shopkeeper simply tells her to take her time and returns to the other customers. Relieved, she continues exploring the market at her own pace. She moves from one stall to another without having to wait for anyone or worry about anyone else's preferences. For once, the day belongs entirely to her. After walking around until her feet grow tired, she settles onto a bench in the park with a delicious crepe. She looks around and realizes how liberating it feels to be alone. She can visit whatever catches her eye. She can eat whatever she wants. She can change her plans without asking anyone first. It is surprisingly peaceful. A little later, she spots the merchant she has been hoping to find. The rainbow bracelets are still there. Her eyes brighten as she approaches the stall and asks about them. The merchant explains that the bracelets are made from special stones brought from abroad. Their colors shimmer beautifully whenever they catch the light. Nicole asks whether she can purchase just one instead of the usual matching pair. The merchant looks surprised, but her determination quickly wins him over. He gladly agrees. Nicole thanks him with a radiant smile. For the first time, she feels certain that coming alone was the right choice. She even decides that she will return by herself next year. While Nicole is enjoying her newfound freedom, Chaos has no idea what is happening. A few days before the market, he stands by an academy window and remembers the approaching event. He assumes she will invite him just as she did the previous year. Surely her letter will arrive soon. Except it does not. A full day passes. Nothing. Another follows. Still no letter. His confusion slowly turns into concern. By the eve of the market, he is still waiting. While sitting with his friends, he hears everyone discussing their plans and starts wondering whether Nicole might surprise him by coming to the academy herself. Unfortunately for his expectations, she never appears. When he returns home, his maid greets him as usual. There is no letter. No message. Not even a hint that Nicole plans to contact him. That night, he goes to bed wondering whether she will appear the next morning. Market day arrives, and he is still waiting. Dressed and ready, Chaos finally loses patience. He decides that if Nicole will not invite him, he will simply go to her himself. When he reaches her house, the maid is visibly surprised to see him. She calmly explains that Nicole has already left for the market. Alone. Chaos freezes. Surely she must have gone with a friend. Yet the maid confirms that Nicole specifically said she was going by herself. His brain seems to need a moment to process this new and deeply offensive information. The following day at the academy, he finally confronts her. He asks who accompanied her to the market over the weekend. Nicole calmly answers that she went alone. Chaos assumes she is joking and tells her not to lie. She repeats that she really went by herself. He studies her face and realizes she is completely serious. His disbelief quickly gives way to frustration. Why would she go alone? What if something had happened to her? Nicole quietly points out that they never made plans to attend together. That brings him to a painful silence. She is right. There was no arrangement, no invitation. Nothing had actually been decided. Yet somewhere in his mind, he had treated it as obvious that his fiancée would naturally attend with him. He asks why she never invited him. Nicole thinks back to the previous year. She remembers how distracted he had been and how desperately he had wanted to leave. Since he clearly had not enjoyed spending the day with her, she simply assumed he would rather not repeat the experience. She did not want to bother him again. With a small, almost peaceful smile, she tells him that he does not need to worry about her so much anymore. After saying that, she turns and walks away. Chaos remains where he is, staring after her with a completely bewildered expression. For once, he has no clever response. Most young nobles get married soon after graduating from the academy. Because of that, they try to spend as much time as possible with their fiancés while they are still students. It is simply the common practice here. Most students spend their days off having tea together or going on dates with their partners. So when Nicole goes to the trade market all by herself, the simple act instantly makes her famous throughout the academy. The moment people hear that she went there alone, the gossip begins. Everyone starts wondering if something happened between her and her fiancé. Some even feel sorry for her. They assume she must be spending her weekends alone because her fiancé turned her down after she invited him. Naturally, the academy ladies cannot resist getting involved. A group of them approaches Nicole with wide smiles. Nicole turns toward them and politely asks what they want. One of the ladies steps forward and asks if she has heard about a certain park. According to the rumors, the park brings eternal happiness to lovers who visit it together. She then asks if Nicole would like to go there with her fiancé. Nicole looks gloomy for a moment. Then she suddenly chuckles. She says the place sounds interesting. However, she thinks her fiancé would probably rather visit it with Princess Caroline than with her. She promises to tell him about their wonderful suggestion. The ladies are completely stunned. Their cheerful expressions immediately turn dark. Nicole, however, remains perfectly calm. She simply tells them that if they will excuse her, she needs to get to her next class. Then she walks away. As she leaves, Nicole thinks about Lord Chaos. She already knows he would not be very excited about visiting the park with her, so there is no reason to invite him. Besides, if she wants to go somewhere, she can simply go by herself. She does not need to write him letters. She does not need to prepare tea for him either. Most importantly, she can finally use her free time to relax. She can enjoy this weekend without worrying about him. Then next weekend. And the weekend after that. The more she thinks about it, the happier she becomes. Suddenly, Nicole remembers the bookstore. It has been quite a while since her last visit. The thought of spending a quiet afternoon with a good book in her hands sounds wonderful. For once, she has a perfectly reasonable plan for her weekend. No fiancé required. Soon, classes come to an end. Lunch break begins. The dining hall is packed with students. When Nicole finally reaches the counter, the lady serving the food looks at her and asks if she wants her usual box lunch. She is already preparing to hand it over. Nicole simply chuckles and says no. She would like to have lunch here instead. The lady freezes in shock. Nicole almost feels sorry for her. After all, she has ordered the same box lunch for so long that changing her order probably feels like witnessing a miracle. Once her food is served, Nicole takes her tray and realizes why the woman reacted that way. She understands that everyone is surprised because she has always eaten her lunch alone. Usually, couples have lunch together during their breaks. It is perfectly normal for a fiancé to come to his partner's classroom. He might escort her to the dining hall. He might even sit with her during lunch. Lord Chaos, however, always eats with the other student council members. He never comes to see Nicole. At first, she did not mind. She knows the student council is extremely busy. So she usually eats with girls from less influential families who do not have fiancés. That is how things remain at first. Then one day, Nicole discovers something rather interesting. Apart from Lord Chaos, the other student council members actually make time to meet their fiancés during lunch. Some of them do it once a week. Others manage it twice. Suddenly, Nicole realizes that being busy is apparently not the real problem. The girls she eats with know about this too. Because of that, they carefully tiptoe around the subject whenever Nicole is nearby. They are afraid of making her feel uncomfortable. Eventually, Nicole starts ordering a box lunch and taking it to the courtyard. She eats there by herself so no one has to worry about her. But now, as she grips her tray, Nicole comes to a simple conclusion. If she wants to eat alone, then it does not matter where she sits. She can eat in the courtyard. She can eat in the lunch hall. She will simply go wherever she wants. With that thought, Nicole enters the dining hall. Immediately, she notices people staring at her. She is already used to receiving those strange looks. So she does not bother worrying about them anymore. Let them stare. Let them gossip. Nicole has bigger plans. She has a peaceful weekend ahead. She has a bookstore waiting for her. And for the first time, she realizes that being alone might actually be far more relaxing than having a fiancé to worry about. It has been quite some time since Nicole has enjoyed a proper warm lunch. The moment she takes her first bite, a delighted smile appears on her face. The meal is surprisingly delicious, and for once, something as simple as hot food feels like a luxury. Two girls nearby happen to notice her sitting in the lunch hall. Seeing her there is unusual enough, but the fact that she is eating alone catches their attention even more. Feeling a little sorry for her, the pair decides to approach. One of them politely asks whether she would mind if they joined her. Nicole looks up and welcomes them without hesitation. Once seated, her new companions notice how cheerful she seems and wonder if something pleasant has happened. Nicole shakes her head and explains that nothing special is going on. She is simply enjoying her meal. Of course, she leaves out the real reason for her happiness. Admitting that she is delighted to finally eat a warm lunch would probably sound rather strange. Their conversation continues peacefully until another young lady stops beside the table. It is Lady Lobelia, and she immediately finds Nicole's presence in the dining hall quite amusing. Her fiancé is missing again, she points out, before questioning how often Lord Chaos actually makes time for her. After all, he is always claiming that his duties keep him occupied. Meanwhile, the other members of the student council somehow manage to have lunch with their fiancés. Lobelia wonders whether Chaos visits Nicole once a month. Perhaps every other month. Nicole considers the question for a moment before casually admitting that he has never done so. Lobelia blinks in disbelief. Surely Nicole means that he has not come this month yet. But Nicole calmly clarifies that Chaos has never shared a single lunch with her since their enrollment. The revelation leaves everyone speechless. Even Lobelia cannot find a convincing excuse anymore. She tries to suggest that perhaps he is simply overwhelmed with work, but the explanation sounds weak even to her own ears. Then her expression crumbles. She cries out that such treatment is far too cruel before rushing out of the dining hall. Nicole watches her flee with complete confusion. She has no idea why Lobelia is reacting so dramatically. After a brief pause, she turns back toward the girls and suggests that everyone should finish eating before the food gets cold. Deep down, Nicole wonders whether Lobelia feels sorry for her because she has never once shared a meal with her fiancé. Strangely enough, Nicole does not even consider that a tragedy. Having lunch with Chaos would probably have been painfully awkward anyway. Sitting across from someone who barely shows interest in her hardly sounds enjoyable. In fact, part of her is relieved that such uncomfortable meetings never happened. She has nothing to hide, so she sees no reason to pretend otherwise. Little by little, Nicole discovers that solitude suits her surprisingly well. As the academy term continues, spending time alone no longer feels embarrassing. After becoming comfortable with her own company during her days off, she finds it much easier to walk through the academy without worrying about who is watching. She lifts her chin and carries herself with newfound confidence. Strangely, that confidence causes the gossip to fade. The whispers that once followed her through every corridor gradually disappeared. No one laughs about the abandoned fiancé anymore. For the first time, Nicole can walk around without feeling like the entire academy is waiting for her to fall apart. While enjoying this newfound peace, her gaze happens to fall upon a rose display. The sight reminds her that the annual flower festival is approaching. This celebration is especially important for noble ladies because husbands and fiancés traditionally present them with beautiful flowers. Naturally, the young women spend weeks speculating about what bouquets they will receive. During one class, Nicole overhears three ladies happily discussing their expectations for this year's festival. Their excitement grows as each one imagines what her fiancé might bring. Before long, one of them notices Nicole and asks whether she plans to participate too. Nicole gives a small laugh and declines. She has no desire to receive another batch of leftovers. Her answer leaves the girls utterly confused. One asks what she means by that. Nicole then explains that the flowers Chaos gave her last year were not chosen for her at all. They were simply leftovers from the bouquet he had already presented to Princess Caroline. The girls stare at her in horror. Their disbelief quickly turns into outrage as they wonder how a fiancé could possibly treat someone that way. Nicole, however, remains surprisingly composed. She says that skipping the festival will save her from experiencing the same humiliation again. This year, she has no intention of visiting Chaos or waiting around for a bouquet that may never come. Her thoughts drift back to the previous year's flower banquet. She remembers how Chaos told her that he chose those flowers because they suited her just as well as they suited the princess. At the time, something inside Nicole quietly broke. Whatever lingering affection she had for him disappeared in that single moment. Looking back now, though, she sees it differently. Losing those feelings has given her a strange sense of freedom. The weight she carried for so long seems to have vanished, leaving her free to enjoy her own life. While Nicole is happily moving forward, Chaos remains completely unaware of what has changed. Back at his castle, Caroline asks whether he has been meeting with his fiancée lately. He looks at her with confusion and wonders why she suddenly brings it up. Caroline explains that he used to talk about his plans with Nicole quite often. Recently, however, those conversations have disappeared. These days, it seems as though all of his free time is spent with Caroline instead. Chaos falls silent as he considers her words. Then a strange thought crosses his mind. When was the last time he actually had tea with Nicole? He searches his memory but cannot come up with an answer. Another detail soon catches his attention. Nicole used to send him letters regularly, yet those messages have stopped arriving as well. Only now does Chaos begin to notice the silence left behind by her absence. Before he can figure out what is happening, the door opens and another man enters the room, leaving Chaos with no idea that the woman he took for granted has already begun moving on without him. Zeke explains that the two were discussing Chaos's fiancée because he happened to spot her in town recently. She was out shopping alone, which already seemed unusual enough. Later, he ran into her at the bookstore, where she was eagerly scanning the shelves. When he called out to her, Nicole initially looked cautious. However, her guard dropped after he introduced himself as a student council member. She admitted that she could not decide which book to choose. He then noticed the one in her hands and recognized it as a title he had previously lent her. With a friendly smile, he tells her that she can simply borrow it from him again. Chaos listens to the story in growing disbelief. Caroline, meanwhile, lets out a quiet sigh and admits that perhaps it is not her place to interfere. Still, she advises him not to neglect the woman he is engaged to. He assures her that he understands. Her words make him reflect on his recent behavior, and he has to admit that he really has been spending nearly all his time with the princess. Between their meetings and the preparations for her engagement to a foreign prince, he has barely made room for his own fiancée. The arrangements for Caroline's marriage are almost complete. Her future husband is 13 years older than her, but such an age gap is hardly remarkable among royals. As he looks at her, another thought weighs on him. Once she leaves the kingdom to marry the prince, he may never get another opportunity to spend time with her. That is why he wants to cherish whatever time remains. Even so, the news about Nicole wandering around town alone leaves him uneasy. If she is visiting places like the trade market without an escort, she could easily put herself in danger. At the very least, he should find out why she keeps going out alone. Before he can dwell on the matter, Zeke brings up the approaching flower festival. He asks whether Chaos has decided what he will give his fiancée this year. He admits that he has not chosen anything yet. Last year, he bought a bouquet of pretty white flowers and took one bloom from it to decorate Caroline's desk in the council room. Since he knows practically nothing about flowers, he figures that choosing the same kind again should be safe. White flowers are simple, elegant, and unlikely to offend anyone's taste. Meanwhile, Nicole sits in her room when another concern crosses her mind. There is a chance her fiancé might still feel obligated to prepare something for her, just as he did the previous year. She quickly adds a line to her letter, telling him not to bother. She does not want him making unnecessary preparations on her behalf. As the festival approaches, the academy enters a brief holiday. With no lessons scheduled, students spend the day exchanging flowers and enjoying time with their partners. Before long, countless couples leave campus and head toward town together. Nicole watches the lively streets from afar and imagines how dazzling the town must look today. Curious, she decides to visit it herself. Just before she leaves, however, Lobelia stops her. She asks whether she truly intends to walk into town alone. Nicole confirms that she does. Her companion immediately warns her that a young lady wandering around without a flower could attract the attention of undesirable men. With so many people celebrating, being alone could make her an easy target. Nicole appreciates the concern but calmly assures her that she is perfectly accustomed to traveling alone. She knows enough to avoid secluded streets and dark alleys. Besides, the town is crowded today, so she should be fine. Lobelia still looks uneasy, but Nicole politely takes her leave. Unfortunately, she barely makes it a few steps before colliding with someone. It turns out to be Zeke. He greets her and quickly recognizes her from the bookstore. After confirming that she remembers him, he asks which book she ended up choosing. She laughs and reveals that she picked an entirely different one from another shelf. He chuckles before noticing that she is heading toward town without a flower. Naturally, he assumes she must be meeting her fiancé. Nicole shakes her head and explains that she simply wants to look around the town for a while. He then informs her that Chaos is currently in the student council office and offers to escort her there. She politely declines. There is no reason for her to see him today. That answer catches him completely off guard. He insists that Chaos must have prepared a flower for her. Nicole merely smiles and tells him not to worry. She has already informed her fiancé that she does not want one this year. If he went out of his way to prepare something after she specifically told him not to, she would only feel guilty. Zeke's expression turns utterly blank. Then, as though a terrible realization has struck him, he tells her to stay right there. He will be back in a moment. Before she can ask what he means, he bolts into the council room and calls for Chaos. The latter turns around, baffled by the sudden interruption. Zeke immediately demands to know whether he bought a flower for his fiancée. Chaos says he did not. Nicole's letter clearly stated that she wanted nothing this year. Zeke looks ready to collapse. He asks whether Chaos is secretly trying to destroy his own engagement. The accusation leaves him utterly bewildered. Why would anyone deliberately do that? Zeke tells him to forget the excuses and listen carefully. Nicole is about to enter town alone during the flower festival without carrying a single bloom. That is a disaster waiting to happen. Strangers will assume she is unattached. Even those who know she is engaged will wonder why her fiancé allowed her to walk around empty-handed on the one day when everyone is exchanging flowers. Before long, the rumors will spread, and Chaos will be branded as the heartless fiancé who could not even give his own fiancée a flower. His eyes widen as the situation finally sinks in. For once, he realizes that what seemed like a harmless request from Nicole may have just turned into a very public disaster. Chaos is stunned to hear that Nicole is heading into town alone without a flower. He cannot understand why she would tell him that she does not want one. Zeke, however, has no intention of letting him stand there pondering it. He points at him and insists that he can figure out the reason later. For now, he needs to find her, accompany her to town, and buy her a flower. Caroline quietly calls after him, telling him to go. Taking the hint, he hurries off. Meanwhile, Nicole waits in an alley, completely unaware of the commotion her decision has caused. Before long, Chaos comes rushing toward her, calling her name. She turns around in surprise as he arrives, breathing heavily. Concerned by his sudden appearance, she asks what is wrong. Instead of explaining, he simply tells her that they should go together since she is heading into town. He then takes her straight to a flower shop and asks which bouquet she wants. Nicole looks at him with confusion. She wonders if he is choosing flowers for Princess Caroline, because if so, her opinion would hardly be useful. Chaos stares at her in disbelief and asks what she is talking about. She reminds him that he gave Caroline flowers last year. He immediately denies it. Nicole insists that he told her those were the same flowers he had given the princess. Chaos finally realizes what she has misunderstood and explains that he had never seen those flowers before. After buying them for Nicole, he had purchased another flower separately to decorate Caroline's desk in the student council office. Nicole's eyes widen as the truth sinks in. That means she has been telling everyone that her bouquet was merely Caroline's leftovers. She immediately realizes that she will have to correct that misunderstanding later. Chaos studies her expression and wonders if she had genuinely believed that he bought those flowers for Caroline first. For a moment, he suspects that jealousy might have been behind her reaction. Before he can dwell on it, he asks which bouquet she wants. When she hesitates, he tells her to simply choose one. Nicole points toward a bright orange arrangement and says that she likes it. Orange flowers always cheer her up. Chaos pauses at her answer. It suddenly occurs to him that he has never even asked about her favorite color. They are already halfway through their second year at the academy. Only a year and a half remains before graduation, when they are expected to marry. Yet despite being promised to each other for so long, he realizes that he knows remarkably little about her. He takes the bouquet and hands it to her. Then he casually says that since she has received her flowers, they are finished for the day. Nicole looks at him in bewilderment and asks if there is anything else. Her question leaves him confused. He glances around and realizes that they have only just arrived in town. Clearly, their outing cannot end after one trip to the flower shop. He takes her hand and pulls her toward a nearby cafe. Once they sit down, Nicole looks at him and asks if he is certain he should stay with her. Does he not need to be with Caroline? Chaos sighs and explains that he does not spend all his time with the princess. He is mainly with her because he has been helping with matters concerning her engagement. Nicole listens quietly, though from her perspective, it has always seemed as if Caroline occupies most of his attention. He then brings up another concern. He has heard that she has been wandering around town by herself. He tells her that it is dangerous for a noble lady and urges her to stop going alone. Nicole is momentarily speechless. She never expected him to worry about her. Still, she assures him that she is careful. She stays in crowded places where people can see her, and she knows better than to wander into secluded alleys. Chaos remains unconvinced. Even with those precautions, he considers it unsafe. At the very least, he tells her to take one of her ladies-in-waiting whenever she goes out. Nicole acknowledges his concern, but admits that she is much more comfortable when she travels alone. She quietly assumes that his concern will not last. Chaos is not particularly interested in her, so he will probably forget this conversation soon enough. She then changes the subject and brings up Caroline. Nicole mentions that the girls in her class have been saying the princess is interested in foreign princes. Chaos confirms that the rumors are true. As he looks at her, he cannot help wondering why she keeps mentioning Caroline. Nicole, meanwhile, has already drawn her own conclusion. Chaos is clearly far more interested in the princess than in her. She knows very little about Caroline herself, and there is not much they could discuss together. In Nicole's mind, that explains why her fiancé has never shown much interest in getting to know her. Nicole closes her book and collapses onto her bed with a satisfied sigh. She stares at the cover and thinks about how wonderful the story was. The author comes from the neighboring kingdom, and the first book she bought from them had been so captivating that she ended up reading every translated work available. Unfortunately, the stack waiting on her desk reminds her that there are still plenty of stories she cannot understand yet. Instead of giving up, an idea suddenly sparks in her mind. Her eyes widen as she declares that she will learn the neighboring kingdom's language and read the original versions herself. With all the free time she has, she figures it should be perfectly possible. She is usually alone anyway, so studying another language sounds like a much better way to spend her time. Even after marriage, she expects Chaos will not suddenly become interested in keeping her company, so having books to escape into could be quite useful. The thought actually excites her, and she decides to visit the library after class the following day. True to her plan, she heads there and searches through the shelves until one particular book catches her attention. Unfortunately, the moment she opens it, reality hits. She cannot understand a single word. Rather than being discouraged, she decides to begin with the titles. Back in her room, she sits at her desk and starts translating them one by one. The first is titled Science Essentials, which already proves more difficult than she expected. Next comes Man, Woman, Marriage and Law, and she guesses that it probably discusses the legal side of marriage. Then she reaches Revenge, Blood, Crust. That title sounds considerably more frightening than the others. Another book catches her attention, The Old Tale City. From the title, she suspects it might be a collection of folk stories about Ivislok, the capital of the neighboring kingdom of Illegale. The more she examines it, the more excited she becomes. If it really is a collection of fairy tales centered around one city, then perhaps it will be easier for her to understand. With renewed enthusiasm, Nicole begins working through the pages. It is still difficult, but she refuses to give up. The next day at the academy, Lobelia's fiancé, Emilio, happens to notice her sitting by herself. He recognizes her from the flower festival and remembers the things Lobelia has told him. His fiancé has always worried about this particular lady because her fiancé is supposedly obsessed with Princess Caroline. Seeing Nicole alone, he figures that she must be the woman Lobelia keeps talking about. Since she looks lonely, he considers stopping to greet her. Then he notices the tears in her eyes and immediately panics. Nicole wipes them away and mutters that the princess is cruel. Emilio freezes behind a nearby sofa. Did she just say the princess? Could she possibly mean Princess Caroline? His imagination immediately runs wild. Nicole continues reading through her tears, lamenting that this is how her first love ends, trampled into the ground and leaving her beautiful heart sullied. Emilio's expression turns pale. Every dramatic word sends his thoughts further off the rails. He becomes convinced that Chaos and Caroline have somehow crushed Nicole's innocent feelings. Then she reaches another line about being pelted with stones. Emilio nearly loses his mind. His jaw drops as he wonders whether she is suffering some form of abuse. Raising a hand against a woman would already be unforgivable, but throwing stones at her afterward sounds like an entirely different level of villainy. He clenches his teeth and decides that he wants to confront Lord Chaos immediately. However, he quickly remembers that Chaos is closely associated with the princess. If he interferes recklessly, he could make matters far worse for Lady Nicole. So instead of charging into battle like a heroic knight, Emilio remains hidden behind the sofa and desperately tries to figure out what on earth she is actually reading, Emilio knows he has to handle the situation with caution. Whatever is happening to Nicole, confronting chaos without understanding the circumstances could only make matters worse. With a grim expression, he walks away, deciding that for now, the best he can do is keep an eye on her from a distance. Even that feels frustratingly inadequate. His fiancée soon notices his troubled demeanor and asks what is bothering him. He calls her over and immediately tells her not to mention what he has discovered to anyone just yet. Meanwhile, Chaos is strolling through an open corridor with Caroline when a furious voice suddenly rings out. A woman orders him to stop and brands him a disgraceful knave. She goes so far as to curse him to eternal damnation, leaving him utterly dumbfounded. He tries to ask who she is and what he has supposedly done, but she simply shouts that he should remember her words before fleeing. Caroline is just as perplexed. She looks at him and wonders what he could possibly have done to provoke such an outburst. Chaos can only admit that he has absolutely no idea. Elsewhere, Nicole is peacefully seated in the library when two girls approach her. They ask what she is reading this time. She explains that it is a foreign fairy tale about a lake fairy who falls in love with a human man. Wanting to remain beside him, the fairy takes human form and begins living with him. The girls find the premise charming, but Nicole continues with the tragic conclusion. An evil princess deceives the man into throwing stones into the lake. One of them strikes the fairy in the head and kills her. After her death, the lake becomes polluted, the surrounding forest withers, and eventually the man's entire village falls into ruin. Nicole admits that the ending affected her so deeply that she shed a few tears while reading it the previous night. Time passes, and another major event soon shakes the academy. Caroline's engagement to the crown prince of a foreign kingdom is officially announced. Her wedding is scheduled for next year, immediately after she graduates. Nicole sits quietly in the library and begins wondering what Chaos will do now. Will he accompany Caroline to Illegale? He has always insisted that becoming a knight was partly about protecting her. If he truly intends to continue that role, however, moving abroad will be anything but simple. Joining another kingdom's imperial guard would be difficult. Perhaps he could rise through the ranks and eventually serve as a diplomat, giving him a way to remain near the royal family. Nicole considers another possibility. Maybe he will end their engagement before leaving. Perhaps he will marry her first and depart afterward. Yet as the eldest son and heir of a count, he cannot simply abandon his homeland without consequences. His younger brothers could inherit in his place, but even so, giving up his position would be a tremendous sacrifice. If Caroline truly matters that much to him, Nicole thinks he might even throw away his status, start from nothing in Illegale, and work his way back up. She catches herself dwelling on his future and decides there is little point in wasting her time on it. She has more important things to study. Unfortunately, the ladies nearby have already noticed her. They whisper about how often she has been appearing in the library lately, completely engrossed in studying Illegese. From there, the rumors take on a life of their own. Some believe Chaos is planning to follow Caroline to Illegale, which explains why Nicole is desperately learning the language. Others claim that he intends to abandon her, leaving her no choice but to chase after him. A few even imagine that he has ordered her to master the language if she wants any chance of marrying him. The Academy gossip machine is clearly working overtime. Elsewhere, Chaos is heading toward his duties when Albert calls out to him. He asks how things are going with Nicole. Chaos gives a vague answer and says that everything seems normal. Albert, however, looks irritated and asks whether he has heard the latest rumors. Chaos has not, so his friend explains that everyone believes he is planning to cast Nicole aside and leave for Illegale with Caroline. Worse still, people think his abandoned fiancée is desperately studying the foreign language so she can follow him. Chaos is horrified. He demands to know who started such nonsense. He cannot simply abandon the country. He is the heir to a count and has obligations that cannot be ignored. Albert sighs and asks whether he seriously has not heard any of this. Zeke, who has been listening to their conversation, then points out that at least one part of the rumor is true. Nicole really is studying Illegese, and she has been seen in the library with foreign books quite often. Chaos goes pale. He covers his mouth as the implication strikes him. Why would she suddenly need to learn Illegese? Knowing the Empire's official language is already enough for communication across the continent. Taking the trouble to learn another nation's language makes it look as though she is preparing for a life there. Chaos clenches his teeth and asks why everyone assumes he intends to move to Illegale. Zeke reminds him of something he has said countless times. Chaos always claimed that he became a knight so he could protect Caroline. Chaos quickly clarifies that those words were spoken before her engagement. He only intended to remain her friend and protect her while she was still living in their country. Once she becomes someone else's wife, he has no intention of following her abroad. Albert points out that his intentions hardly matter if everyone else interprets his actions differently. From the outside, he looks like a man abandoning his fiancée to pursue a princess. Before Chaos can argue further, Caroline enters the room. She admits that she may share some responsibility because she has relied heavily on him due to their long-standing friendship. Even so, she asks whether he has considered that he might be neglecting Nicole. Her words leave him stunned. Caroline reminds him of the flower festival, when Nicole planned to enter town alone. She has apparently done the same at the trade market before. The princess urges him to visit his fiancée more frequently, send her letters, and spend his days off with her. After all, Caroline herself regularly exchanges letters with the crown prince she is promised to. Chaos quietly acknowledges that she has a point. Albert then gives him another piece of advice. He mentions that Nicole has been wearing a particular bracelet almost every day. Perhaps Chaos should wear its matching pair and take her for a stroll through town. If everyone sees them together, it might finally silence the rumors. Chaos looks puzzled and asks which bracelet he means. Albert explains that it is the one sold at the trade market. Matching bracelets became fashionable among couples because people believed wearing them together brought happiness. Chaos then asks whether Albert and his fiancée bought matching ones too. Albert smiles and admits that he could never refuse her when she asked. Chaos's expression immediately falls. His friends are discussing matching bracelets as if this is the most ordinary thing in the world, yet he does not own one. Nicole, however, apparently does. For some reason, his fiancée has been wearing a bracelet that he never even knew about. Chaos nearly loses his composure as he stares at the bracelet. If he did not give it to Nicole, then who did? Could another man have given it to her? Or perhaps she bought it herself? The possibilities immediately send his thoughts into overdrive, and he insists that neither could possibly be true. Before he can dwell on it any further, Caroline calls his name and says she would like to speak with Nicole as well. He looks at her in confusion, so she explains that she feels she owes his fiancée an apology for taking up so much of his time. She plans to invite her for tea after classes and speak with her personally. When the academy day finally ends, Nicole makes her way to the castle, although she remains puzzled by the invitation. If the princess is going out of her way to summon her, then there can only be one reason. She assumes Caroline intends to take Chaos to Illegale and wants her to step aside. With that thought in mind, she enters the garden, where the princess is already waiting. Caroline welcomes her, thanks her for coming, and invites her to sit. Once they settle down, she begins with an apology. She admits that her dependence on Chaos, whom she has always regarded as a close friend, must have caused Nicole considerable distress. Nicole only sighs and shakes her head. She assures Caroline that there is no need to apologize. She used to care about such things, but now she barely minds at all. If being with Caroline is what makes Chaos happy, then Nicole has no intention of standing between them. So, if he wants to accompany her to Illegale, she is perfectly willing to let him go. Caroline listens carefully before bringing up something else. She has heard that Nicole recently started studying Illagese. Nicole confirms it, explaining that she has only just begun learning the language. Curious, the princess asks why she decided to study it. Nicole answers simply that she wants to read books from Illegale in their original language. Caroline hesitates before asking the question that has clearly been troubling her. Is Nicole learning Illagese because she intends to follow Chaos to that country? Nicole's eyes widen as she finally understands. So even the princess has heard those ridiculous rumors. She gives her a gentle smile and quickly reassures her that she has no intention of interfering. If Chaos wants to leave with Caroline, Nicole will not stop him. She will not pressure him to take her along either. In fact, she casually adds that she would be perfectly fine with ending their engagement. Caroline's composure immediately falters. She looks genuinely shaken by how easily Nicole says it, as though ending an engagement were nothing more than changing her afternoon plans. Nicole continues, explaining that she would actually prefer a marriage of convenience. She simply wants to marry someone respectable and live peacefully. Most noble women already have fiancés by their age, and if she suddenly breaks off her engagement now, the men who come forward afterward will probably be far less appealing. She has no desire to trade one complicated situation for another. Then, with the same practical attitude, Nicole asks Caroline why she cannot simply remain in their homeland while Chaos travels to Illegale. Why does she need to follow him at all? The question leaves Caroline visibly trembling. Nicole's reasoning is so straightforward that the princess cannot immediately find an answer. Once their conversation comes to an end, Caroline returns to the council room with a deeply troubled expression. The moment she enters, she walks straight to the table and strikes it with her hand. She finally admits that she was wrong. The situation is much worse than she originally thought. Everyone around her stares in confusion as she explains that, if things continue like this, Chaos may actually end up entering a marriage of convenience with Nicole. The others are left speechless. After all, they were worried about him abandoning his fiancée, but somehow the exact opposite disaster is now approaching. The others stare at Caroline in disbelief. One of them finally asks how the situation has become this complicated. Chaos is not planning to end his engagement, so how did the possibility of a marriage of convenience even enter the picture? Caroline clenches her teeth in frustration. She admits that she completely misread the relationship between the two of them. They assumed Nicole was simply jealous of her, and if that had been the case, clearing up the misunderstanding would have been easy. But now it seems that jealousy is not the issue at all. Nicole does not appear to resent Caroline. She simply seems indifferent toward Chaos. Zeke points out that this is exactly what worries him. During the flower festival, Nicole did not look like she was pretending when she said she had no desire to see her fiancé. Chaos falls silent as that realization sinks in. Albert then insists that their first priority should be having an honest conversation with her. He looks directly at Chaos and asks whether he truly feels the same indifference toward her. Chaos immediately rejects the idea. He grits his teeth and declares that Nicole is his beloved fiancée and that he genuinely loves her. Albert nods and gives him the obvious solution. If that is how he feels, then he should stop talking about it and show her. He tells Chaos to invite her on a proper date after classes the next day. The following afternoon, Nicole strolls through one of the academy corridors while quietly humming to herself. Her mind is occupied with something far more pleasant. The book she ordered from Illegale is finally arriving, and she is already looking forward to reading it. Her peaceful mood lasts until she reaches the corner and finds Chaos waiting for her. He calls out to her, and she turns around with a polite greeting. She then walks straight past him and casually asks him to thank Caroline for yesterday's tea. With that, she prepares to leave. Chaos quickly reaches out and stops her by the shoulder. He tells her to wait. Nicole turns back with a puzzled expression and asks what he wants. Behind a nearby door, his friends secretly watch the scene unfold. They exchange anxious looks as they silently encourage him to say what he came here to say. Chaos clears his throat and finally tells Nicole that they are going to town together after classes. She looks at him in confusion and asks whether he means that he and Caroline are going. His expression instantly stiffens. He hurriedly clarifies that he means the two of them. Nicole looks genuinely surprised and wonders why she would be going with him. Chaos struggles to put his feelings into words while his friends silently urge him to confess that she is his beloved and that he loves her. Instead, he manages to blurt out that they are engaged, so naturally they should spend time together. His face turns bright red as he adds that they can have tea somewhere in town. Nicole apologizes and says she already has plans. Chaos immediately asks whether she has something important to do. She admits that she does not. He seizes the opportunity and tells her that there is no problem, then. He will come for her after class. As he walks away, Nicole watches him with a tired sigh. All she really wants is to return home and read her new book. Now she has to think of something to discuss with him during their outing, yet absolutely nothing comes to mind. Once lessons end, Chaos takes her into town and brings her to a cafe. On the way, he remembers Albert's advice. His friend had specifically told him about a cafe that opened only a month ago and quickly became popular with young women. According to him, Chaos should take Nicole there first and discover what kind of tea she likes. The moment they enter. However, the plan immediately becomes awkward. The waiter recognizes Nicole and enthusiastically calls out her name while welcoming her back. Chaos's expression darkens. He looks between them, clearly wondering what is going on. Nicole greets the waiter naturally and approaches the counter. The man then asks whether she is visiting with a friend today. She gives a vague answer and says that she is, in a way. Chaos immediately asks whether she has been here before. Nicole nods. She explains that the cafe became famous soon after opening, so she came to see what all the excitement was about. Keo's mouth falls open when he realizes what she means. He asks whether she came here alone. She calmly confirms that she did and sees no reason for him to be surprised. To her, visiting a cafe alone is perfectly ordinary. To him, however, a young noblewoman sitting here by herself is bound to attract attention. He also notices that the waiter seems unusually familiar with her, which only makes him more suspicious. Once their tea arrives, Keo's becomes serious. He tells Nicole that from now on, she is not allowed to wander around town alone. If she wants to go somewhere, she needs to tell him first. Nicole stares at him in disbelief and points out that he is always busy. Keo's immediately argues that he can at least make time for his own fiancé. She takes a sip of her tea and simply agrees, although her expression suggests she is not entirely convinced. Then his attention shifts to the bracelet around her wrist. He asks where she got it. Nicole explains that she bought it at the trade market. He raises an eyebrow and asks whether she purchased it by herself. She gives him a straightforward look and says, "Of course." Keo's then recognizes the design. He asks whether it is the bracelet that became fashionable among couples last year. Nicole confirms that it is. She explains that she could not afford to buy one at the time, but she always thought the design was beautiful, so she decided to get it when she finally had the chance. A faint blush appears on her face as she admits how much she likes it. Keo's watches her in astonishment. He quickly hides his expression and casually remarks that the craftsmanship is quite impressive. He studies the bracelet on Nicole's wrist for another moment before asking whether it is not something couples are supposed to wear together. She explains that the merchant told her it was perfectly fine to buy only one. That answer only frustrates him further. He asks why she did not simply take him with her. Nicole looks at him and naturally assumes he means he wanted to buy one for Caroline. Keo's immediately rejects that idea and, after struggling to keep his patience, decides that he needs to make himself absolutely clear. Once Caroline marries the foreign crown prince, she will leave for his kingdom while Keo's remains behind as the heir to his family. Their paths will only cross during official diplomatic occasions, so he has no intention of following her abroad. Nicole listens quietly and even sympathizes with him. She wonders whether there might still be a way for him to stay connected to Caroline. If he could obtain a position that allowed him to meet the foreign queen, perhaps he could continue seeing her. That suggestion finally pushes Keo's past his limit. He slams his hand onto the table and insists that Nicole listen to him. He does not want that kind of relationship with Caroline. They have always been close because they grew up together. Their bond comes from years of friendship, not romantic feelings. Nicole stares at him in surprise. From her perspective, however, everything he does seems to revolve around the princess. She remembers their trip to the trade market the previous year. Whenever they passed something interesting, he would immediately remark that Caroline would probably like it or that it would suit her. How could Nicole possibly interpret that as anything other than affection? Keo's tries to explain, but she continues recalling the countless little moments that made her reach the same conclusion. Even when he was supposed to be attending sword practice, he seemed irritated because he had other matters involving Caroline on his mind. She points out that even his sword training appeared to revolve around protecting her. Keo's quickly protests that this is not what he means. Nicole, however, simply sighs and tells him that it is fine. She understands why he would rather devote himself to someone he genuinely cares about than force himself to spend time with a fiancé he barely knows. Besides, she admits that she is more comfortable on her own. Her words leave him frozen. As he thinks about them, he realizes that she has a point. His behavior really does make it appear as though he is pursuing Caroline, even though that has never been his intention. He has known Caroline since childhood and has always regarded her as a close friend. Everything changed once they entered the academy. Because of her position, she had to fully embrace her role as a princess. She was no longer free to train with a sword, despite possessing the skill to wield one like a seasoned knight. Keo's remembers how difficult it was for him to watch her suppress that side of herself. Whenever he saw a suit of armor or a finely crafted blade, he would instinctively think that Caroline would look magnificent wearing it. Those thoughts came naturally because he had always known her as the talented girl who loved swordsmanship. What he never realized was how different his interactions with Nicole would feel. He had occasionally noticed a hair ornament and thought it would look lovely on her. He knew she enjoyed reading, so he searched for books that he believed might interest her. Yet whenever he tried to spend time with her, he found himself uncertain about how to behave. Unlike Caroline, who was confident, athletic, and familiar to him, Nicole was quieter and far more ordinary in his eyes. He simply did not know how to approach someone like her. Spending time with Caroline had always been effortless because he never had to question himself around her. So whenever things became awkward with Nicole, he unconsciously retreated toward the relationship that felt familiar. Chaos finally looks at her and calls her name, but Nicole only gives him a gentle smile. She tells him that he should simply live however he wishes. If staying close to Caroline makes him happy, she will not interfere. However, she also reminds him that breaking off their engagement now could leave her with very few respectable marriage prospects later. She lowers her gaze, her cheeks faintly flushed, and admits that she would not even object to maintaining a marriage of convenience. If they simply preserve their current arrangement, she can continue living peacefully without expecting anything from him. Chaos goes completely blank. After everything he has just tried to explain, he somehow manages to end up in an even more impossible situation. He wanted her to understand that he loves her, yet she is calmly offering him a marriage where neither of them expects love. For once, even Chaos has absolutely no idea how to turn things around. After hearing the whole story, Chaos's friends are left staring at him in stunned silence. No one seems capable of explaining how a simple engagement has somehow turned into a full-blown disaster. Chaos clenches his trembling fist and asks whether a marriage of convenience is really all he has left. Does this mean he cannot even have tea with Nicole anymore? Caroline looks equally miserable and admits that she feels responsible for the mess. She even jokes that perhaps she should spend the rest of her life repenting in a church. At this point, becoming a nun might be the least complicated option. Albert quickly brings the conversation back to Chaos and tells him that regret alone will not fix anything. If he has finally realized how badly he treated Nicole, then he needs to start winning her back. Another friend agrees. He suggests dates, letters, small gifts, and anything else that might remind her that she actually has a fiancé. Chaos's face goes completely blank. Nicole has already told him that she is happier on her own. What is he supposed to do? Take her on a date while she spends the entire time thinking about her next book? Albert points out that this is exactly what it looks like when someone has fallen out of love. Then he asks whether Chaos truly wants a marriage that exists only on paper. Chaos immediately shouts that of course he does not. Albert sighs. Then there is only one answer. Chaos has to put in the effort and win her feelings back. Chaos looks at them helplessly and asks how. One of his friends raises a finger and gives him the simplest starting point. He needs to make Nicole conscious of him as her fiancé again. That means having lunch together, attending events side by side, and actually behaving like a couple for once. Caroline suddenly pauses. Come to think of it, have they ever even had lunch together? Chaos freezes. He is always with Caroline during breaks. His friends slowly turn toward him with expressions that practically scream disappointment. He finally admits that he has never once eaten lunch with his own fiancée. Everyone erupts at once. They call him an idiot and wonder how he managed to miss something so obvious. Even they admit that Nicole has every reason to stop loving him. Chaos desperately tries to defend himself, but Zeke delivers another brutal blow. He tells him that it may already be too late. There might be no coming back from this. Chaos nearly loses his soul on the spot. Caroline lowers her head too and admits that she is partly responsible. She relied on Chaos far too much and never stopped to consider what Nicole might have been feeling. Albert cannot think of a perfect solution either, so he settles on the most basic one. Chaos should start by inviting her to lunch. It is not exactly a grand romantic gesture, but considering his current record, lunch is already an ambitious first step. With that decided, Chaos heads for Nicole's classroom. Meanwhile, Nicole has just finished reading in the library. She is still thinking about Chaos's strange behavior from yesterday. He had looked as pale as a ghost and barely managed to speak. She assumes he might have been unwell, or perhaps he is still struggling with Caroline's engagement. Either way, it is not really her concern. She gathers her things and prepares to get lunch when the classroom door suddenly flies open. Everyone jumps. Chaos stands there, breathing heavily as though he has just sprinted across the entire academy. He looks directly at Nicole and blurts out that they should have lunch together. Before she can even respond, Lobelia steps forward like a knight defending a kingdom. She orders him to stop and immediately tells the other girls to escort Nicole to safety. The ladies grab Nicole and start leading her away while she looks around in complete confusion. Chaos stares after them and asks where they think they are going. Before he can follow, someone grabs him from behind. He twists around and demands to know what they are doing. Emilio calmly steps forward and asks whether Chaos has a legitimate reason for barging into the classroom. Chaos stares at him. Of course he does. It is lunchtime, and he has come to invite his fiancée to eat with him. Emilio adjusts his glasses and asks whether that is really true. After all, Chaos has never had lunch with Nicole before. Why the sudden change? Chaos grows irritated and tells him that it has nothing to do with him. Emilio's expression becomes even more suspicious. He calmly replies that perhaps it does. As a gentleman, he cannot simply ignore the possibility that a delicate lady is suffering at the hands of an abusive man. Chaos nearly chokes. What domestic violence? He has never laid a finger on Nicole. Emilio explains that abusers often fail to realize they are behaving like abusers. That explanation only makes Chaos more horrified. Before he can argue further, two men seize him from behind. They announce that they have heard enough excuses and decide to restrain him for questioning. Chaos struggles wildly as someone brings out a rope. Moments later, he is tied to a chair with a strange device strapped around his head. He stares at them as though the entire academy has collectively lost its mind and demands to know what they plan to do. Emilio calmly explains that the device is a Western invention called a lie detector. Chaos is then instructed to answer every question with either yes or no. Before he can protest, Emilio asks the first question. Did he throw stones at his own fiancée? Chaos's face darkens immediately. He clenches his teeth and demands to know what kind of absurd interrogation this is. While he is being treated like the Academy's most dangerous criminal, Nicole is completely unaware of the chaos behind her. She collects her lunch and wonders what Chaos wanted this time. He has never visited her during a break before. Could he really have come to invite her to lunch? She quickly dismisses the thought. As if he would actually make time for her. She glances through the window and notices how pleasant the weather is. Instead of eating inside, she decides that the terrace would be much nicer. She carries her meal outside and enjoys the simple freedom of having no one to answer to. Just as she reaches the terrace, one of the girls approaches with a bright smile. She tells Nicole that she and the other two ladies have decided to protect her from now on. They invite her to eat with them and assure her that she does not have to worry about anything. Nicole is stunned by the sudden kindness. She realizes that she is not quite as alone as she thought. Surprisingly, she finds herself smiling. Perhaps having people around her is not so bad after all. Even without Chaos, there is still plenty for her to enjoy. Meanwhile, Chaos finally manages to escape his ridiculous interrogation and rushes after her. A marriage blanc is essentially a union between a husband and wife who have no romantic feelings for each other. They remain married for appearances, while their relationship is little more than a formal arrangement. With everything around him spiraling further into chaos, Chaos clenches his teeth and wonders how something as simple as his relationship with Nicole has turned into such a spectacular mess. Still, despite all the misunderstandings, he has no intention of giving up on her. While he tries to figure out his next move, his friends are frantically searching the academy for him, completely unaware that he is currently hiding behind a pillar like a nobleman avoiding his creditors. Eventually, everyone regroups in the student council room. Chaos is still visibly irritated as he explains what happened. His intentions were harmless. He merely wanted to invite Nicole to lunch, yet somehow that innocent plan ended with him being restrained and strapped to a lie detector. After surviving that absurd ordeal, he drops onto the floor and catches his breath. Caroline, meanwhile, brings up the bizarre accusation of domestic violence and asks where such an outrageous idea even came from. Chaos covers his face and admits that the entire situation feels like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. He cannot understand why everyone suddenly treats him like some dangerous criminal when he has done nothing wrong. Zeke listens carefully before pointing out the real danger. If they cannot even approach Nicole anymore, clearing up the misunderstanding will become nearly impossible. Albert agrees. He has no idea where the domestic violence rumor originated either, but whoever started it clearly seems determined to make things worse for Chaos. His attention soon shifts back to Nicole. Chaos worries about her being surrounded by those overprotective classmates and wonders whether she is actually safe. He even suggests transferring her to another class to get her away from all this nonsense. Caroline listens quietly before making up her mind. She realizes that her own actions have contributed to the misunderstanding, so she decides to speak with Nicole herself and finally straighten everything out. While that discussion is being planned, Nicole is peacefully browsing through the library, blissfully unaware that her engagement has become the Academy's biggest comedy show. She spots an intriguing book on the highest shelf and stretches to reach it. Before her fingers can touch the cover, someone reaches over and pulls it down for her. The unfamiliar young man offers it with a faint smile. Nicole accepts it and politely thanks him, but something about him immediately feels suspicious. She tries to strike him, sensing that he does not belong to the Academy. He looks genuinely bewildered by her reaction, so she calmly asks him to let go of her. He releases her at once and apologizes. He casually praises her dedication, noting that she is still studying even after classes have ended. What catches her off guard is the fact that he knows her name. Nicole's expression stiffens as she asks how he knows it. Before he can properly answer, he takes her hand and pulls her closer. He insists that he has something important to tell her and desperately hopes she will believe him. His heart races at the mere thought of earning her trust. Unfortunately for him, fate has terrible timing. The library doors suddenly open, and Chaos calls out for Caroline. He demands to know what she is doing, while she turns toward him with remarkable calmness. She explains that she is trying to clear up the misunderstanding with Nicole. Chaos immediately asks what exactly she plans to say. Caroline wastes no time putting her strategy into action. She steps closer to Nicole and explains that she has always been rather masculine in both appearance and personality. Even as a child, she genuinely believed she would grow up to become a man. Because of that, she considers herself a man at heart, at least in the way she has always viewed herself. She looks directly at Nicole and realizes that the poor girl has completely misunderstood her relationship with Chaos. Caroline explains that she and him have always regarded each other as close companions, nothing more. Their bond comes from childhood friendship, and she even attended the academy in this manner whenever circumstances allowed. Hoping to erase every last doubt, she gently lifts Nicole's chin and tells her that someone as lovely and charming as her should never waste tears over their relationship. Unfortunately, her attempt at reassurance creates a completely different problem. Chaos nearly loses his mind. He rushes forward and tries to pull Caroline away, shouting that she is standing far too close to Nicole and needs to let her go. Caroline turns toward him and firmly tells him not to interfere because she is finally getting to the important part. Chaos stares at her in disbelief, wondering what she could possibly mean. He also cannot understand why she needs to dress like a man just to explain something that should be straightforward. She confidently insists that this appearance makes her point far more convincing. Nicole can only watch them with bewilderment as the situation somehow becomes even stranger. Caroline kneels beside her, takes her hand, and earnestly asks her to trust what she is saying. For now, she wants Nicole to think of her as a man, because that is exactly how Chaos has always regarded her. She points toward him and reminds her of the first time he saw her wearing the Academy's women's uniform. His response had been nothing more than, "What, cross-dressing now?" Caroline immediately condemns his lack of manners and calls it proof of how insensitive he can be. He fires back without hesitation, reminding her that she once encouraged him to cross-dress and even tried to strip his clothes off. Naturally, the explanation turns into another argument within seconds. Nicole watches them in utter confusion as Caroline sighs and describes him as hopelessly tactless. In her view, he has no idea how to deal with someone as lively and gentle as Nicole. Instead of facing her emotions properly, he keeps retreating whenever things become difficult. She turns back to Nicole and assures her that she is being completely sincere. Before he can defend himself, however, a book flies straight into his head. He yelps in pain as two girls march over and scold him for making noise inside the library. With his pride taking another direct hit, he finally gives up. Nicole glances at the chaotic scene and quietly wonders if she can leave now. Once the strange encounter ends, the rumor mill goes into overdrive. Word spreads across the academy that Princess Caroline is attempting to steal Lady Nicole's fiancé. Within no time, their harmless conversation is transformed into a scandalous love triangle. Meanwhile, Nicole walks through the corridor alone while trying to understand what those two are actually planning. She already knows Caroline is renowned for her beauty, yet she has to admit that the princess looks remarkably handsome in men's attire. Remembering the commotion in the library, she wonders why both of them seem so determined to involve themselves in her affairs. As far as she is concerned, nothing is wrong with her current life. Her attention soon shifts to a notice board announcing another soiree for the following week. The gathering takes place every 3 months, giving students an opportunity to socialize. Bringing a fiancé is not mandatory, but almost everyone still arrives with their partner. Nicole assumes Chaos will naturally spend the evening beside Caroline again. Usually, she stays quietly in a corner and lets everyone else enjoy themselves. This time, however, she feels that wasting an entire evening like that would be pointless. She starts considering whether she can ask a professor for permission to spend the occasion studying instead. While she is already planning her academic escape, the council room is suffering from a completely different kind of disaster. Albert points at the pair with an exhausted expression and reminds them that their original task was simple. They only needed to clear up the misunderstanding and reassure Nicole that Chaos would remain faithful to her. Somehow, they have managed to turn a simple conversation into an academy-wide catastrophe. He admits that none of this was what he intended. Zeke immediately turns his attention to Caroline and warns her that her behavior is especially dangerous with her wedding approaching. If these rumors continue, people may start believing that the princess stole another woman's fiancé. That could damage her reputation and even threaten her future as crown princess. She apologizes, but her next remark only makes matters worse. She casually points out that she simply looks far more handsome than Chaos. Apparently, all she did was charm Nicole a little, yet the academy has already upgraded it into a forbidden romance. He stares at her in disbelief and demands an explanation for that ridiculous conclusion. Caroline remains completely unfazed. She even suggests that Nicole might not have been entirely opposed to the idea. He instantly rejects the thought. In his mind, she is not the sort of woman who would casually abandon her engagement and move on. Caroline keeps teasing him, wondering whether being neglected by such an incompetent fiancé has caused Nicole to lose interest in men altogether. His patience finally snaps. He insists that she stop interfering because he still intends to win Nicole's heart back himself. Their friends can only groan as the two continue bickering like children fighting over the last piece of cake. Zeke finally points out that leaving everything to these two clearly is not working. Every attempt they make only creates another problem. Albert agrees and admits that they have reached the point where ordinary solutions are useless. They can no longer keep worrying about appearances or hoping the misunderstanding will somehow disappear on its own. With the situation becoming more absurd by the minute, they have only one option left. It is time to take drastic measures. Chaos ends up kneeling before Lady Lobelia, desperately trying to explain how the situation spiraled this far. She listens with clenched teeth before scoffing and asking whether he has completely lost his senses. After hearing the entire story, she can only label his actions as spectacularly foolish. More than anything, she feels sorry for Nicole. She admits that she may have misunderstood the domestic violence rumor, but that does not excuse him. Emotional neglect and mental distress are still serious matters. He lowers his gaze, looking thoroughly defeated, and quietly admits that she has a point. Before he can say anything else, another lady raises an important question. If Nicole is truly planning to end the engagement, are there no better marriage prospects available for her? A short-haired noblewoman immediately offers to speak with her father, while another mentions that her mother has plenty of connections in Illegale and could probably find several suitable candidates. Zeke's patience begins to crumble. He raises a hand and asks everyone to slow down. Albert steps in as well, acknowledging their frustration while pleading for their assistance. Chaos explains that he only wants one chance to speak with Nicole when she visits town. He desperately wants to repair the damage himself. Lobelia rejects the request outright. After everything he has done, she sees no reason to make things easier for him. The other ladies readily support her. They remind him that when a woman becomes thoroughly exhausted with a man, she can eventually reach the point where even seeing him becomes unbearable. His expression sinks further, but Lobelia delivers another blow. She remarks that she is already being generous by accepting the possibility of a marriage blanc. He nearly chokes. She cannot understand why some men convince themselves that a woman must still adore them simply because they happen to be interested in her. Another noblewoman adds that plenty of men suffer from the same delusion. They assume their attention is automatically a gift that women should treasure. Lobelia's irritation reaches another level as she declares that men who act as though a woman should be thrilled merely because they noticed her are especially unbearable. She would rather listen to a dog bark all afternoon. At least the dog would eventually get tired. Her focus soon shifts to Princess Caroline. She acknowledges their long friendship, but she cannot help questioning whether the princess has never found it strange that a man with a fiancé spends nearly all his free time beside another woman. In her eyes, such obvious negligence should have been noticed much sooner. Caroline lowers her head and accepts the criticism. She admits that she failed to consider how her closeness with him affected Nicole. Even so, she asks Lobelia to help them one last time. After a weary sigh, the older girl finally agrees. However, she gives Chaos a grim warning. Winning back someone who has already stopped caring is far harder than earning affection from someone who merely dislikes him. The others immediately concur. At this point, they are convinced Nicole has moved beyond anger and reached complete indifference. After all, hatred still requires emotion. Indifference is what comes after the feelings have died. Those words hit him harder than any sword could. Albert watches his friend's face sink and quietly realizes that the ladies are showing absolutely no mercy. Fortunately, one of them remembers the upcoming academy soiree. It is only a week away. Until now, Chaos has spent those gatherings beside Caroline while Nicole remains by herself, usually tucked away somewhere unnoticed. She asks whether he has even bothered to invite his own fiancé. His sudden silence answers everything. The lady immediately understands that Nicole will probably attend alone once again. She points at him and orders him to write her a letter. He must ask her to accompany him. For once, he does not argue. He straightens up and agrees immediately. That evening, Nicole is peacefully reading in her room when her maid arrives with an envelope. Curious, she asks who sent it. Her eyes widen when she hears the answer. The letter is from Lord Chaos. She opens it and discovers an invitation to the upcoming soiree. He intends to meet her outside the classroom and escort her there himself. Nicole stares at the message, wondering what could have caused such a sudden change. A moment later, she remembers Caroline's engagement. Perhaps he can no longer remain constantly beside the princess without attracting even more gossip. From her perspective, the reason seems obvious. She accepts the invitation and writes a courteous reply, assuring him that she looks forward to seeing him. Once the letter is finished, she returns to her books without giving the matter much further thought. Her studies have become one of the few things she genuinely enjoys, and she is pleased to notice how much her vocabulary has improved. The novel she picks up tells the tale of two lovers whose relationship gradually falls apart. The heroine eventually grows tired of the man's hesitation and decides to walk away. Only after losing her does he finally realize how deeply he cares. He rushes after her, hoping to repair what he ruined. Nicole becomes completely absorbed in the story. She cannot understand why he waits until everything is falling apart before recognizing his own feelings. By the time he finally understands her worth, she has already begun creating a new life without him. She also notices a pattern in the author's heroines. They are courageous, stubborn, and unwilling to surrender their dignity simply because a man finally comes running back. Even when those women still have feelings, they refuse to make forgiveness look easy. Nicole grows increasingly curious about how this particular story will end, so she keeps turning the pages. Eventually, several unfamiliar words slow her down. Rather than ignore them, she carefully copies each one into her notes and studies their meanings. After a little effort, she manages to understand the passage completely. She glances toward the clock and realizes how late it has become. With a small stretch and a satisfied smile, she finally closes the book for the night. As Nicole closes her book, her gaze falls on Chaos's letter. She remembers that she still has to send her response, so she seals the envelope and prepares it for delivery. With everything taken care of, her mind drifts back to the novel. A faint smile crosses her face as she wonders what will happen next. By the following morning, Chaos's friends arrive and greet him as they always do. Their relaxed mood disappears the instant they see him and Caroline looking utterly exhausted. Both stare at them in disbelief and immediately demand an explanation. Instead of answering, Chaos silently holds up Nicole's reply. He explains that she has finally responded to his invitation. His companions take the letter and read it together. Within seconds, their eyes widen, and the room falls strangely quiet. Whatever they find in those few lines is clearly enough to leave everyone speechless. Meanwhile, Nicole arrives at the academy and receives cheerful greetings from the students around her. Completely oblivious to the storm her innocent reply has unleashed, she simply carries on with her morning. Across the academy, however, Chaos and his friends are already facing another unexpected crisis. The problem begins when Nicole's reply gets mixed up with the notes she has written about the novel she is studying. The words make it sound as though she already understands that Chaos does not truly love her and only sees her as someone he cannot afford to lose. His friends stare at him in horror and immediately demand to know what he plans to do. He can only clutch his head in frustration and admit that he has absolutely no idea. Albert studies the letter and remarks that he would probably burst into tears if his own fiancée ever sent him something so heartbreaking. After exchanging uneasy glances, he explains that Chaos has ignored Nicole for so long that this sudden change in behavior is bound to confuse her. From her perspective, it is perfectly reasonable to assume that he does not love her. Perhaps he simply wants to keep the engagement intact. Chaos grits his teeth and insists that nothing could be further from the truth. Before he can defend himself, the door flies open and Lobelia marches inside. She tells him that the first thing he should do is apologize to Nicole. Being ignored by one's own fiancé is painful enough. She asks whether he finally understands how deeply his actions have affected her. He remains bewildered when another nobleman arrives with his fiancée. Lobelia gives him one final piece of advice. He should use that supposedly brilliant mind of his and seriously reflect on what he has done. Her fiancé gently places a hand on her shoulder and suggests that they leave, but before going, she reminds Chaos to think carefully about everything he has put Nicole through. Once they depart, he remains standing there, staring at his own hand as though the answers to love are somehow written on his palm. Albert tells him to forget about understanding romance for the moment. What matters now is repairing the damage through genuine effort. Zeke agrees. Perhaps Nicole is not demanding grand declarations of love at all. Maybe she simply wants something sincere from the man who is supposed to be her partner. Chaos still looks lost, so his friends urge him to calm down and take things one step at a time. Meanwhile, Caroline finally accepts that she should stop interfering in their relationship. Considering Nicole's feelings, she realizes that her involvement has only made matters worse. Albert agrees, leaving her with little reason to argue. She clenches her fist and promises to learn from the disaster. It is time for her to stop disrupting the peace and start thinking about the consequences of her actions. After leaving the room, Chaos wanders through the academy corridors with 3 words circling endlessly through his mind. Honesty. Love. Sincerity. Slowly, he begins to understand the real problem. Nicole does not merely distrust him. She has stopped expecting anything from him. In her eyes, he has become someone who is not worth hoping for. That realization hurts far more than he expects. If he wants her trust, he first has to give her a reason to expect something from him. Without trust, affection has nowhere to grow. While lost in thought, he notices Lobelia walking with her fiancé. Emilio opens a small box and asks whether she will wear the hair ornament to the upcoming function. She admires the piece and thanks him for choosing something so beautiful. He carefully places it among her dark hair and remarks that the red stones look striking against it. She smiles and asks whether he selected it especially for her. He answers that of course he did. Her delighted reaction makes him smile, and Chaos quietly watches the exchange. For a moment, he imagines himself in Emilio's place. He pictures giving Nicole a thoughtful present and watching her face brighten as she realizes he chose it specifically for her. The fantasy feels strangely natural until his thoughts inevitably drift toward Caroline. He sighs and finally accepts the truth. He cannot keep living this way. Lobelia's words about sincerity have finally reached him. For years, he has treated Nicole's presence as something guaranteed rather than something precious. Now, he clenches his fist and decides that has to change. At the same time, Nicole is sitting peacefully in the library when a passage in her book catches her attention. One unfamiliar word leaves her puzzled, so she studies the surrounding description and tries to work out what it means. From the details about the small box, she concludes that it is probably a necklace or perhaps a hair ornament. As the chapter continues, the heroine accepts the gift and agrees to attend the upcoming dance. Nicole becomes surprisingly invested in the story. She starts thinking that the sincere servant seems like a much better match for the heroine than the fashionable but rather nihilistic man. She even wonders whether things would change if the servant were more assertive about his feelings. The thought makes her pause. Could that actually be the kind of man she finds attractive? Since she has been engaged to Chaos since childhood, she has never seriously considered what her ideal partner might be. Embarrassed by where her thoughts are heading, she closes her eyes and shuts the book. Romance probably is not meant for her. She is perfectly satisfied with fictional stories that make her heart flutter without dragging her into the trouble that comes with real relationships. Besides, she has become comfortable living independently. Being alone is simple. It asks nothing from her. Her peaceful thoughts are interrupted when her maid enters and informs her that Lord Chaos has arrived. Nicole is immediately puzzled. They have no plans together today, so why has he suddenly come to see her? She heads downstairs and finds him waiting in the guest room. When she asks whether something is wrong, he apologizes for arriving without warning. He explains that he merely wants to give her something. From his coat, he produces a small box and places it in her hands. She asks if she may open it. The moment the lid lifts, her eyes widen. Inside is a delicate hair ornament adorned with orange details. Chaos immediately looks away, almost embarrassed by his own gift, and explains that he remembers she likes orange. Nicole is stunned. She wonders how he could possibly know that. A moment later, she recalls the flowers he gave her after she mentioned her favorite color. So he really did remember. Before she can properly respond, he tells her to wear the ornament at the upcoming function and promptly makes his escape. Nicole remains seated with the box in her hands, staring after him in confusion. Why has he suddenly started paying attention to her? He truly does not need to go out of his way. She has managed perfectly well without him for years. Yet as she considers her future, she realizes that independence has its limits. While she is still a student, she can enjoy a certain amount of freedom. Life becomes far more complicated afterward. Noble women in their country have limited career options, and married women cannot inherit property. Without a marriage, her future could become uncertain. Back in her room, she glances toward the books she has been studying and remembers the women of Illegale. Their stories describe women working alongside men and pursuing professions of their own. The contrast between the two countries fascinates her. She knows women there still face plenty of difficulties, but at least they have opportunities to build lives outside marriage. If she had been born in Illegale, perhaps she could have chosen a profession and confidently proven that she was capable of standing on her own. Her eyes eventually settle on the ornament Chaos has given her. She studies it quietly, wondering what she should do with both the gift and the future it seems to represent. When Chaos finally returns home, exhaustion overwhelms him, and he quickly falls asleep. Yet even in his dreams, Nicole continues to haunt his thoughts. The moment he gives her the hair ornament, she throws it onto the floor with a mocking smile and asks whether he is seriously trying something like this now. His eyes snap open, and he wakes up breathless. After realizing it was only a nightmare, he releases a relieved sigh. The next day arrives, and the academy is filled with students dressed in their finest clothes for the evening function. Following the morning assembly, they gradually make their way toward the Great Hall, almost all of them accompanied by their partners. Among them is Lobelia, who arrives with Emilio. He immediately compliments her appearance and tells her that she looks even more beautiful than usual. She smiles and credits the hair ornament he gave her. While the young men head out to collect their fiancés, the ladies remain in their classrooms and wait. Nicole is standing quietly beside the window when the door suddenly opens, and Chaos appears before her. He apologizes for keeping her waiting. She greets him with a gentle smile and assures him that she does not mind. However, his unusual expression catches her attention, so she asks whether something is wrong. Instead of answering directly, he notices the ornament in her hair and points it out. She confirms that she decided to wear it. He gives her an awkward compliment, telling her that it suits her. Nicole thanks him politely, which only makes him more nervous. Gathering his courage, he extends his hand and invites her to go to the function with him. She accepts, and the two of them leave the classroom together. As they make their way toward the Great Hall, several students notice the change in his behavior. He is clearly making an effort this time, although his friends remain suspicious. After everything that has happened, they are practically waiting for him to trip over his own feet again. Once everyone has gathered, Caroline steps forward and welcomes the students to the function. She wishes them a pleasant evening before introducing the distinguished guest beside her. It is Crown Prince Wilhelm, her fiancé from the neighboring country. She explains that he has come to meet the young nobles who will eventually carry their nation's future. Nicole listens with interest as she realizes who he is. Her thoughts immediately turn toward Chaos. She wonders whether seeing Caroline beside her future husband will upset him. When she looks over, she catches him watching her instead. She asks if something is wrong, but he quickly looks away and claims that everything is fine. His reaction leaves her puzzled. She briefly wonders whether there is something strange about her appearance before reaching what seems like an obvious conclusion. He probably cannot stand seeing Caroline beside another man. After all, he has spent most of his life beside her. It must be difficult for him to watch someone else take that position. Chaos, however, is focused on something completely different. His eyes keep drifting toward Nicole, especially toward the ornament in her hair. Each time he sees it, his heart fills with warmth. He never expects such a small gesture to affect him so deeply. Simply seeing her wear something he chose for her makes him happier than he wants to admit. With the evening now underway, the music begins, and he leads Nicole onto the dance floor. They move gracefully together as he quietly wonders whether she is enjoying herself. She, meanwhile, remains distracted by his strange behavior. He keeps looking at her, and his attitude is nothing like his usual self. Before she can make sense of it, the dance comes to an end. That is when Wilhelm approaches them and calls out to Nicole. Caroline introduces them properly, and the prince greets the pair with a pleasant smile. Nicole becomes nervous under his attention and instinctively steps behind Chaos, lightly holding onto his shirt. The sight completely catches him off guard. He freezes for a moment, struck by how adorable she looks. More importantly, a strange realization settles over him. He has never felt anything like this while standing beside Caroline. Recovering himself, he introduces himself respectfully and welcomes Wilhelm to their academy. The prince returns the greeting and mentions that he would be delighted to welcome both of them to his country if they ever have the opportunity to visit. Nicole is immediately drawn to his refined manner and calm, elegant voice. Wilhelm soon turns his attention toward her and compliments her beauty and graceful bearing. He also mentions that he has heard about her studies in Illigese. Curious, he asks what inspired her to learn the language. Nicole hesitates for a moment, worried that her reason might sound strange, but she decides to answer honestly. She explains that she wants to read the works of Rain's Wilderness in their original language. The prince's expression immediately brightens. He reveals that he is also a devoted admirer of the author and explains that Rain's Wilderness is highly respected in his homeland. His works are becoming increasingly popular abroad as more translations become available. Nicole smiles and admits that she has already read every translated work she could find. Unfortunately, the original Illigese texts are still difficult for her, and she struggles to understand them. Wilhelm responds warmly and praises her determination. He tells her that simply attempting to read another language shows how serious and diligent she is. Nicole modestly tries to dismiss the compliment, but Chaos quietly watches her from the side. As he does, another uncomfortable realization reaches him. She looks genuinely happy. Her expression is bright, her voice is lively, and she speaks with far more enthusiasm than she ever shows around him. He suddenly understands how different she appears when she is enjoying herself. Whenever she is with him, she is usually reserved. Their conversations often end up revolving around Caroline. Yet with Wilhelm, she is completely at ease. Chaos begins to feel like an outsider standing in the middle of his own conversation. Unable to bear it, he suggests that perhaps they should leave so they do not disturb the prince. Wilhelm politely stops him. He explains that he actually wants to hear more about the academy and asks whether they can keep him company a little longer. His curiosity soon turns toward the opportunities available for studying languages. Nicole happily explains that their library contains a wide selection of books about Illigale. She also mentions how surprised she is by the differences between their culture and her own. Chaos listens as her enthusiasm continues to grow. With every word, he becomes more aware that he is barely part of the conversation anymore. Nicole admits that she would love to study the language even further. Hearing this, Wilhelm offers her an unexpected possibility. If she is genuinely interested in Illigale, why not study there herself? He explains that she could even find work in his country because women are encouraged to pursue careers, and immigrants are welcomed. Nicole stares at him in shock. For the first time, she realizes that working in Illigale could actually be possible. Until now, she has believed that if her engagement to Chaos ended, her only option would be to find another suitable husband. She has never seriously considered building a future through her own abilities. Now, however, another road suddenly opens before her. Her eyes brighten at the thought of becoming independent and choosing a profession for herself. Chaos notices that excitement immediately, and a cold realization settles over him. Perhaps Nicole never wanted to marry him because she loved him. Perhaps she simply believed that marriage was the only future available to her. If that is true, giving her another choice could mean losing her entirely. Wilhelm smiles and offers to explain the opportunity in greater detail if she is interested. Before he can say anything more, Chaos abruptly interrupts him. He insists that they cannot do that. Nicole turns toward him in confusion as he suddenly takes her hand. She has no idea what has gotten into him. Chaos finally realizes just how terribly he has been treating Nicole without even noticing it. To understand how things reached this point, the story goes back to the time when the two have only recently become engaged. When Chaos first receives a letter from Nicole, he completely loses his composure. He stares at the elegant, faintly scented envelope and wonders whether his sweaty hands are even worthy of touching it. After pacing around in a panic, he decides to take a bath first so he can read it properly. A few hours later, he is still staring at the unopened letter. He worries that touching it with damp hands might ruin it, and since bedtime is approaching, he decides that reading it now will only leave him overthinking his reply all night. So, naturally, he postpones it until tomorrow. The next morning, Chaos sits down for breakfast and tells himself he will read the letter once his busy schedule settles down. Unfortunately, the afternoon brings another distraction, and he ends up getting into trouble with his mother instead. By the following day, he finally gathers enough courage to open the envelope. Nicole's letter begins with a polite greeting, thanking him for meeting her the previous day and asking how he has been since then. She says she is looking forward to seeing him again and hopes they can talk more in the future. She also mentions her love of books and asks how he usually spends his free time. Chaos suddenly realizes he can finally tell her about his own life. He grabs some paper and a pen and begins writing about his days at the royal palace. Before he can get very far, however, his friend bursts in and proudly announces that he has found a gigantic rhinoceros beetle. Chaos immediately forgets about the letter and rushes off to admire its magnificent horns, only to end up getting scolded by his mother once more. When he returns, Chaos stares at his unfinished reply and realizes there is no way he can tell Nicole about his beetle battles with the prince. She will probably think he is some peculiar boy with an unhealthy fascination with insects. Chaos decides his letter needs to sound more refined and intellectual, so he puts it aside until the next day. Unfortunately, one day becomes another, and his reply remains unfinished. After several days of agonizing over every possible sentence, another letter from Nicole arrives. Chaos immediately panics, imagining that she is about to ask why he has not replied. He realizes that if the thought is troubling him this much, he should have written back immediately. However, he is terrified that Nicole will become disappointed in him or think he is hopelessly boring, so he delays opening the new letter as well. It takes him 3 entire days to gather the courage, only for him to discover that Nicole is not complaining at all. Instead, she simply says that she understands he must have been busy and asks him to take good care of himself. Chaos breathes a sigh of relief, believing the crisis has finally passed. Unfortunately, he soon realizes that he still has not sent her a reply. By the time a third letter arrives, he finally manages to send a short response. From there, their correspondence develops into an embarrassing little pattern, with the number of letters going from 3 to 1, 5 to 1, 7 to 1, and continuing in the same fashion. Back in the present, Chaos suddenly shouts that Nicole cannot go. She looks at him in confusion, wondering what has gotten into him. Chaos turns toward Prince Wilhelm and firmly says he would appreciate it if the prince stopped misleading his fiancée. He insists that Nicole is brave enough to travel anywhere on her own, which means he has to keep up with her instead of allowing her to leave him behind. For that reason, he refuses to let her go to the prince's country. The entire audience is stunned as Chaos continues, warning that someone as beautiful as Nicole could easily attract the attention of undesirable people if she travels alone. He even worries that certain witches might already have their eyes on her. As he speaks, Chaos finally confronts the truth about himself. How could he have been so comfortable leaving Nicole alone for so long? He can hardly believe how careless he has been. Acting on impulse, he pulls Nicole close and embraces her, declaring that he will never leave her alone again and will not give her up to anyone. The crowd is left completely speechless. Nicole, however, merely looks at him with confusion. She assumes he is simply worried about someone as inexperienced with the world as her traveling abroad alone. Chaos' expression freezes. Nicole calmly assures him that there is no need to worry because she has already become accustomed to being on her own. Chaos' jaw nearly hits the floor. That is definitely not what he means, but somehow his heartfelt declaration has landed in an entirely different universe. Later, Nicole sits quietly while finishing the final pages of her book. The heroine declares that she cannot reach the future she desires by simply following the path others have chosen for her. With determination, she realizes that if she has the courage to carve out her own road, countless possibilities will open before her. She chooses to leave the familiar path behind and begin a journey of her own. Sitting alone in the park, Nicole closes the book and reflects on its ending. The story follows a timid girl who gradually grows strong enough to face anything. Although several men have tried to win her heart, she refuses to take their hands and instead sets off toward a new world by herself. Nicole sighs and admits that she wishes she could carve out her own path just like the heroine. At that moment, Chaos comes running toward her. Nicole looks up and asks if he needs something. Chaos asks whether she would like to visit town with him because he has heard about a popular new accessory shop. Nicole politely explains that she is not looking for anything new, but Chaos insists that she might find something she likes. He also mentions hearing about a new trend where couples wear stones matching each other's eye color. Nicole chuckles and says she is already perfectly satisfied with the bracelet and hair ornament he has given her. Chaos is pleased that she likes his gifts, but admits that he would love for them to wear something that openly shows they are a couple. Before he can get carried away with the idea, Nicole stands up and reminds him that her studies are more important. She has already spoken with her parents about studying abroad, and they have told her she can pursue it as long as she earns a government scholarship. Chaos is stunned. Nicole also reveals that she has sent a letter to Count Braun to ask what should happen to their marriage if she studies abroad. Chaos cannot understand why he has heard nothing about this from his own father. His shock only grows when he learns that his father is perfectly willing to postpone the marriage for several years because he would be delighted to have such a talented daughter-in-law. Nicole can pursue whatever future she wants. The Countess has given an equally generous response, saying there is nothing wrong with making a man wait for her. Chaos is left completely baffled, wondering why this ridiculous couple keeps making major decisions without informing their own son. Meanwhile, Nicole is already excited about the possibilities ahead. She decides to return home and devote herself to her studies, telling Chaos that he is free to visit town without her. With that, she bids him farewell and walks away. Chaos watches her leave in disbelief before dropping to his knees. He finally understands that he cannot simply stand by and accept Nicole going off on her own. Several days later, Nicole sits inside interview room 2 in the academy's West Wing. A teacher explains the selection process for the government scholarship. After the instructions, each applicant must introduce themselves, explain why they want to study abroad, complete the application, and submit it to the executive office by the following week. The teacher calls the next applicant, and Nicole steps forward. She introduces herself and explains that her interest in studying abroad began after learning that men and women in that country can pursue the same professions. She wants to study there so she can broaden her understanding and think more deeply about the future opportunities available to women in the Revillage Kingdom. Several days later, the scholarship results are finally announced, and Nicole nearly jumps out of her skin when she sees that she has ranked 27th. She stares at the number in disbelief, realizing that this means she is officially eligible to apply for the overseas study program. A bright smile spreads across her face as she realizes she has finally reached the starting line. The government scholarship is limited to only 3 students, with 2 positions reserved for applicants from the academy. To qualify, students must reach their 3rd year, take the first round of examinations, and place within the top 30 students of their year. Nicole had fought her way up 20 positions to reach this point, so the pressure had been considerable. Still, as she gazes at the results board, she knows this is only the beginning. If she wants to make her dream a reality, she has to work even harder. Meanwhile, Chaos watches her from behind a pillar, grinding his teeth in frustration. Things are slipping beyond his control, and at this rate, Nicole might actually become an exchange student. His friend soon catches him lurking in the shadows and asks if he plans to keep sneaking around like some suspicious alley cat. Albert explains that Nicole has been completely absorbed in her studies, which is why she keeps turning Chaos down whenever he invites her on a date. Even his attempts to have lunch with her fail because her friends immediately step in to protect her. If he tries approaching her after classes, he gets chased away by her classmates. Chaos becomes furious and insists that those people are absolutely wicked. He cannot understand why they have not changed classes after advancing to their 3rd year. Albert calmly points out that Lady Lobelia and Emilio are at the heart of the operation. They have been keeping a close watch on Chaos to make sure he does not interfere with Nicole's ambitions. Chaos protests that they have nothing to worry about because he is not trying to destroy her dreams. He only thinks she is pushing herself far too hard. After all, the original plan is for them to marry after graduation, so there should be no reason for her to exhaust herself just to become an exchange student. Albert can only sigh at his words and conclude that Chaos is truly a piece of work. 3 days after the results are announced, Nicole stands outside interview room 2 and takes a deep breath. She knows this is another important step, so she knocks before entering. Inside, several students immediately turn toward her. Nicole's nerves spike when she realizes she is the only girl in the room. For a moment, she thinks that her former self might have turned around and fled. Instead, she gathers her courage and takes a seat. A boy nearby looks at her with open disbelief and asks what a girl is doing at a briefing for exchange student applicants. Nicole calmly informs him that she is an applicant too. His surprise quickly turns into mockery as he wonders whether she plans to go abroad in search of a husband. Nicole brushes off the remark and explains that she already has a fiancé. The boy scoffs and tells her that if she already has one, she can simply marry him after graduation. He accuses her of wanting to travel abroad for fun and claims that she is only making things harder for the other applicants. Nicole firmly denies it, but before the argument can escalate, the teacher enters the room and brings everyone to order. He begins explaining the government scholarship selection process. After the briefing, each applicant must introduce themselves, explain their reasons for applying, complete the required forms, and submit them to the executive office by the following week. The main examination will take place during the second term. At the beginning of August, the applicants will face a language examination and a parliamentary interview, where their ability to read, write, and speak the foreign language will be assessed. Only the 5 students with the highest scores will advance to the next stage, which includes another selection test and a second interview at the end of October. Nicole looks around the room and counts 8 other applicants besides herself. That means several candidates will inevitably be eliminated before the second term even begins. The teacher adds that their regular end-of-term examinations will also count toward the evaluation, along with their conduct and overall lifestyle. The final results will be announced in November. Nicole quietly calculates the schedule in her head. It is already April, and after the July holidays, the language examination will arrive in August. Rather than feeling intimidated, she becomes even more determined. She knows exactly what she needs to focus on first, and she intends to give it everything she has. The teacher moves on to the introductions and asks each applicant to stand, state their name, and explain their goals. As Nicole listens to the others, she notices that many of their reasons sound remarkably similar. One by one, the applicants finish until it is finally the turn of the arrogant boy who confronted her earlier. He introduces himself as Claude Basile. Nicole immediately recognizes the family name and remembers that the Basiles are counts. She also recalls that their eldest son is named Claude. His decision to study abroad strikes her as unusual because the heir to a noble territory is normally expected to remain in the country and prepare to inherit his family's responsibilities. Most nobles who travel overseas for study are younger sons without an inheritance, since they have to build their own futures from scratch. Yet Claude, despite being the eldest son of a powerful household, has chosen to leave the country. Nicole cannot help thinking that he is rather unusual. Claude calmly tells the teacher that he wants to continue his studies in Illegale so he can contribute to the future development of his territory. Nicole is astonished by Claude's choice. She thinks most applicants usually say they want to study abroad for the future of their kingdom, so hearing him say he wants to improve the future of his own territory feels rather unusual. Soon, it is Nicole's turn to introduce herself. She explains that her interest in studying abroad begins when she learns that men and women can pursue the same professions in Illegale, and that noblewomen can live independently without having to marry. She wants to meet women who actually work, speak with them, and understand both the advantages and difficulties they face. Her goal is to bring that knowledge back and think more deeply about the future of women in the Revelage Kingdom. At first, Nicole had only studied the language because she wanted to read books, but after meeting the prince and being influenced by the stories she reads, her interest in Illegale has grown into something much more meaningful. In Revelage, an unmarried noblewoman holding a job is considered disgraceful, while Illegale actively supports women's participation in society. Many women there remain single and earn their own living, and even Nicole's novels feature noblewomen who choose careers instead of marriage. She begins to wonder whether other women in her own kingdom also dream of having that freedom. If she can see their lives with her own eyes, perhaps she can help open a new path for women back home. The teacher, however, is far from impressed. He questions why a noblewoman would want to work like a poor commoner instead of simply getting married and managing a household. Nicole remains composed despite the dismissive remark. She expects resistance, but knowing that something will be difficult does not make her retreat. She clenches her hand and silently steels herself. This path will not be easy, but she intends to walk it anyway. Meanwhile, Claude continues watching her with a curious expression. Once the interview ends, Nicole steps outside, only to find Chaos rushing toward her with surprising enthusiasm. She looks at him in confusion and asks why he is there. With his usual dramatic elegance, he announces that he has come to pick up his fiancée and suggests they leave together. Nicole is stunned that he has crossed all the way to the West Wing just for her. Chaos simply chuckles and reminds her that he is her fiancé, after all. Behind a nearby pillar, Albert and Zeke grit their teeth as they watch him. They had been secretly trying to listen through the door, and Albert remarks that if Chaos gets caught eavesdropping, whatever dignity he has left will disappear completely. Nicole, still unsure how to respond, politely agrees to leave with him. Just as they step outside, another student nearly bumps into her. Chaos immediately pulls her closer and asks whether she is all right. Nicole assures him that she is fine, but Claude turns away in irritation. He mutters that if she gets along so well with such a devoted fiancé, she might as well get married after graduation instead of studying abroad. Nicole quickly corrects him, insisting that he has completely misunderstood. Chaos does not love her, and the two of them do not particularly get along either. If it looks that way, Claude must be seeing things. Claude walks away with a scoff, while Nicole watches him leave. She realizes that if people start believing she and Chaos are happily devoted to each other, it could create trouble for him. She is pursuing her own ambitions, and her engagement could be dissolved at any moment. If that happens, she does not want her choices to interfere with Chaos' future or prevent him from finding another suitable match. Meanwhile, Chaos practically collapses from the emotional damage. Later, he sits with his friends, looking completely defeated as he complains that Nicole still refuses to believe his feelings are genuine. Albert can only laugh at the situation, pointing out that Chaos is finally suffering the consequences of years of neglect. Zeke reminds him that he already cleared up the misunderstanding involving Princess Caroline. Chaos admits that he did, and he explains everything he told Nicole. For a brief moment, he feels relieved, believing the biggest misunderstanding has finally been resolved. That relief lasts about 5 seconds. Nicole had responded by saying that her plans to study abroad might cause problems for him in the future, and if that happens, he should feel free to break off their engagement whenever he wants. Chaos' eyes widened in horror. He had solved one problem and somehow unlocked another. Since entering their 3rd year and stepping down from the student council, he finally has more free time, yet he still cannot even manage to take his own fiancée on a proper date. Albert points out that 3rd year is normally when couples become closer, but Chaos slams his hand on the table and insists that he is not some lonely bachelor. He has an actual fiancée. His friends stare at him as if he has just made the situation even worse. Chaos' hands tremble as he admits that he is simply worried about Nicole. Every other scholarship applicant is a boy, and he fears that someone might take advantage of her or make unwanted advances. Albert sighs and warns him that constantly following Nicole around and using concern as an excuse to restrict her choices will only make her resent him. Zeke asks the question Chaos has been avoiding: does he truly support Nicole's decision to study abroad, or does he want to stop her? Chaos falls silent before finally admitting that he does not want her to leave, but he also does not want her to hate him for standing in her way. His friends point out that there is only one thing left for him to do: put his hands together and pray that Nicole fails the selection process. Chaos immediately grimaces. He cannot bear the thought of her leaving, yet secretly wishing for her failure would make him feel like the lowest kind of man. Albert, however, says he personally wants to cheer for Nicole. If she becomes the kingdom's first female exchange student, she could inspire countless others. Zeke agrees, adding that she might even spark an entirely new movement. Chaos stares at them in disbelief. He cannot understand how his friends are suddenly supporting his fiancée's dream while he is standing there terrified of losing her. The two casually tell him that it is not their problem and leave to meet their own fiancés. Chaos remains behind, gritting his teeth and staring after them. With everyone else moving forward, he is left wondering what he can possibly do for Nicole now. Nicole settles onto the sofa with a book in hand, determined to sharpen her elegies. After studying for a while, she lets out a tired sigh and sinks into the cushions. Reading and writing have become fairly manageable for her. She can understand books written in the language and even handle simple daily conversations. Speaking fluently, however, is an entirely different matter. Without someone to practice with, improving her pronunciation and listening skills proves nearly impossible. She assumes many students rely on private tutors, but hiring one would be expensive. Since she has already postponed her marriage to concentrate on her studies, she does not want to place another burden on her parents. Looking at the scattered books around her, she realizes that studying alone will only take her so far. What she truly needs is someone who can speak Iligese with her. Perhaps Lady Lobelia knows someone from Illigale who might be willing to help. With that thought in mind, the following day arrives, and lunchtime brings an unexpected scene. Chaos finds himself surrounded by Nicole's classmates. He protests that he is her fiancé and questions why he needs their permission just to eat lunch with her. Emilio calmly reminds him that he has brought this treatment upon himself by ignoring her for so long. Lobelia immediately agrees and insists that he deserves to experience the consequences. He grumbles that he has already suffered enough, but his attention soon shifts toward Caroline, who is sitting nearby. Emilio explains that she probably wants to understand another young woman's feelings before entering married life herself. Nicole listens from a short distance away. She finds Emilio surprisingly impressive and notices how uncomfortable Chaos becomes whenever he has to deal with him. She wonders what exactly they are discussing. At the same time, she remembers how she once searched for things she and Chaos could enjoy together. He had shown very little interest back then. Before she can dwell on it, Caroline turns toward her and asks about her scholarship application. Nicole smiles and confirms that she submitted it after class the previous day. The princess praises her determination but reminds her not to neglect her regular studies. Preparing for the exchange program will require considerable effort. With that in mind, she offers an unexpected solution. She asks whether Nicole would like to study Iligese alongside her. The proposal catches her completely off guard. Caroline explains that a new tutor has been invited to the royal palace to prepare her for life as the future crown princess of Illigale. Having someone study alongside her would make the lessons more enjoyable. It would also give both of them a chance to practice speaking. Nicole carefully considers the offer. It is almost too good to pass up. The princess will undoubtedly have access to one of the finest language tutors available. For someone of Nicole's rank, an invitation to the royal palace is also a remarkable honor. Her parents would surely be pleased. Their families standing among the nobility could benefit as well. Since she has already caused them concern by postponing her marriage, she feels that accepting this opportunity might be one small way to repay their support. Still, she worries that her presence could distract Caroline from her own studies. The princess quickly reassures her. She will soon be married, and if Nicole eventually studies abroad, having a practice partner now would be useful for both of them. Chaos listens to this and grows suspicious. Why is Caroline suddenly encouraging Nicole to pursue her dream of visiting Illigale? Before he can say anything, she offers another suggestion. She understands that Nicole might feel nervous about visiting the royal palace alone. With a mischievous smile, she points toward him and proposes that he escort her. Both of them freeze. He immediately understands the opportunity. If he accompanies Nicole in the carriage, they can spend some quiet time together without her classmates hovering around them. For once, Caroline's interference seems almost brilliant. He quickly apologizes for doubting her. Unfortunately, Lobelia is not nearly as impressed. She leans toward Nicole and quietly warns her against entering a carriage with him. In her opinion, he is obviously plotting something suspicious. Chaos shoots to his feet and demands to know who she is calling that man. As Nicole's fiancé, he insists that escorting her is perfectly respectable. His sudden enthusiasm only makes Lobelia more suspicious. She points out that he became remarkably eager the instant he learned they would be alone together. She promptly brands him shameless, leaving him red-faced and speechless. The others soon pile on as well. They warn Nicole not to fall for his tricks. Emilio even insists that allowing him anywhere near her is far too dangerous. Lobelia turns toward Caroline and scolds her for helping a man put a young lady in such a questionable situation. She declares that the princess has somehow failed another test. Caroline panics and insists that she was only trying to help her friend with his romance. Once again, her good intentions have produced complete chaos. Nicole watches the commotion with growing bewilderment before gently declining the offer. Chaos stares at her in disbelief and asks why. She admits that she would genuinely love to accept. However, receiving special treatment from the princess and studying under a royal tutor does not feel right to her. She wants to earn her opportunities through her own efforts. Her sincere answer leaves the group quietly impressed. Even Chaos cannot help smiling. Caroline accepts her decision and apologizes for being inconsiderate. Nicole assures her that there is nothing to apologize for and sincerely thanks her for thinking of her. As lunch finally comes to an end, Nicole reflects on how dramatically her life has changed. Around this time last year, everyone viewed her as the unfortunate girl whose own fiancé barely noticed her. Now that she has stopped being afraid of making independent choices, she has found herself surrounded by people who genuinely care about her. She almost wishes she could show her former self just how far she has come. Later, while walking through the corridor, her thoughts return to Illy's. She has made impressive progress on her own. Yet speaking remains a stubborn obstacle. Without real conversation practice, there is only so much she can accomplish with books. She needs another approach. A moment later, an idea strikes her. If she remembers correctly, there is a commoner district nearby where she might find someone who speaks Illy's. She heads there and searches through the area, hoping she has remembered the location correctly. Before long, a young man approaches from behind and asks whether she is alone. Nicole politely asks whether he needs something, but instead of answering, he questions what she is doing there. He assumes she must be lost and casually remarks that she is rather cute. Before she can react, he places a hand on her shoulder and suggests taking her to a nearby workplace. Her expression immediately stiffens. Something about this situation feels suspicious. Still, he leads her toward a shop and invites her inside. A voice from within instantly complains about his lateness. He freezes when he realizes he has brought another girl along. Nicole looks inside and receives an even greater shock. The person standing there is Claude Basile. She can hardly believe that the eldest son of such a prominent noble family is secretly working at a restaurant in town. Before she can make sense of it, Ray removes his hand from her shoulder and asks whether Claude already knows her. He casually jokes that he avoids touching his friends or their acquaintances because relationships can become painfully awkward if they ever fall apart. Claude immediately tells Nicole to leave. He insists that a noblewoman has no business being there and warns her not to mention his family name. She is left completely bewildered. Why would the eldest son of the Basile family secretly work at a restaurant? Before she can ask, Ray opens the door and tells Claude to come inside. A woman soon arrives and apologizes for keeping him waiting. She notices Nicole and asks whether she is his friend. Claude struggles to respond. Before he can explain, the woman suddenly slaps him and calls him a sly fox. She grabs him and orders him inside because their grandmother is waiting. He has no chance to argue and reluctantly leads Nicole upstairs. He knocks on a door and waits until he receives permission to enter. Nicole follows behind, still trying to piece together the bizarre situation. Inside, an elderly woman welcomes them warmly and asks whether he has brought a friend. Nicole's attention immediately locks onto her words. Her eyes widened in astonishment. She recognizes the language without a doubt. The elderly woman is speaking Illy's. The woman switches languages and introduces herself as Zaloa. She warmly tells Nicole that it is nice to meet her. Nicole is confused for a moment. She realizes that the woman is speaking another language. She introduces herself as well. The old woman chuckles and asks if she is Claude's friend. Nicole and Claude both become awkward. Claude quickly explains that Nicole is only an acquaintance who happened to come by. The old woman then reveals that Claude helped her after she tripped and injured her back. Because of the injury, she could no longer work at the restaurant. Claude offered to help until she recovered. He quickly brushes the subject aside and asks Nicole why she is wandering around alone. Nicole explains that she wants to improve her language skills. She can already read and write well enough. Speaking is the real challenge. She needs actual conversations to improve her pronunciation and listening. She also wants to meet people from Illegale. Nicole then explains how she heard about a place where Illy's girls worked. Apparently, Customers could buy them drinks and talk with them. She thought it would be a good place to practice. Claude stares at her in disbelief. He explains that such places are actually brothels disguised as taverns. Customers pay women to entertain them. Some even take them to private rooms. Nicole's face turns pale as she realizes her mistake. The old woman laughs and guesses that the establishment probably uses Iliji's women to attract customers. Claude feels a chill run down his spine. He is relieved that he found Nicole before anything happened. Nicole feels embarrassed by her carelessness. She has become used to going out alone. That confidence has made her less cautious. She apologizes for being thoughtless. The old woman then reveals something unexpected. Claude originally came to the area for the same reason as Nicole. After learning that she was from Iligal, he asked her to teach him the language. In return, he offered to help at the restaurant. Nicole's eyes light up with excitement. She cannot believe her luck. The woman is a genuine Iliji speaker. Claude is also secretly searching for a teacher. Nicole wonders why the son of a count would do that instead of hiring a tutor. Before she can think too much about it, the old woman makes a suggestion. She offers to let Nicole practice speaking with her and Claude. Claude immediately objects. The old woman explains that she is worried about Nicole. Someone else could easily trick her with fake language lessons. Nicole sees the opportunity immediately. Having a native speaker help her would be incredibly useful. She looks at Claude and waits for his decision. Feeling her gaze, Claude reluctantly agrees. He gives her one condition. She must keep everything secret. She cannot tell her parents, friends, or even her fiancé. Nicole agrees without hesitation. Soon, she joins their conversation. She struggles to follow everything being said. As a result, she barely gets a chance to speak. Still, she considers the lesson worthwhile. When the session ends, Claude tells her to hurry home. Nicole thanks him and leaves. The sky is already getting dark. She decides to return home quickly. From now on, she will help at the restaurant twice a week. Afterward, she will practice speaking with the old woman. Nicole keeps the arrangement to herself. She does not know why Claude is hiding his activities. She also does not want to waste this chance. Once she gets home, she plans to review every word whose pronunciation gives her trouble. Meanwhile, another crisis is unfolding at the royal palace. The prince declares that they need a new strategy. Zeke immediately suggests that they stop interfering. Albert agrees with him. He points out that leaving everything to chaos is only pushing Nicole farther away. The princess slams her hand on the table. She declares that this is an emergency meeting. Zeke cannot believe they were summoned to the palace for this. The princess insists that they must do something. The prince suddenly proposes an idea. What if Chaos masters the language and becomes Nicole's study partner? Everyone stares at him in disbelief. The suggestion sounds ridiculous at first. Then they realize it could actually work. Chaos could apply for the exchange program too. That would give him a legitimate reason to study with Nicole. He could even travel to Iligal with her. Chaos immediately points out that there are only 3 scholarship spots. He refuses to take one for selfish reasons. Then he remembers something important. Iliji's university has a night course. Chaos plans to pursue it if Nicole goes abroad. He originally intended to join the Knights after graduation. Completing the university course would help him with the entrance examination. It would also strengthen his evaluation. His parents would have no reason to oppose the plan. Albert realizes that Chaos has finally thought things through. He would have a proper reason to study alongside Nicole. The princess becomes excited. She immediately wants Chaos to invite Nicole to a study session. Chaos suddenly hesitates. Nicole once believed that he would follow her to Iligal even after she married someone else. He fears that his announcement could revive that misunderstanding. His friends point out that hiding the plan would create another misunderstanding. Chaos reluctantly admits that they are right. They suggest that he simply tell Nicole the truth. However, even that sounds frightening to him. What if his presence makes her uncomfortable? What if she loses focus on her studies? Albert finally advises him to stop forcing the situation. He should quietly support her instead. Chaos agrees that a long-term approach may be better. Still, he remembers the previous year. He missed the traders' market in June. He let the July break pass without noticing. Then the August flower festival showed him how comfortable Nicole had become on her own. He refuses to make the same mistake again. Unfortunately, her language test is approaching in August. Nicole will be completely focused on studying. Depending on her results, she will either prepare for another test or face rejection. Chaos realizes she might not even have time to think about him. For once, he wonders if this is how Nicole felt when he ignored her. Meanwhile, Nicole continues working at the restaurant. Ray arrives and praises everyone for their hard work. Claude remarks that it is surprising to see Ray arrive on time. Ray sighs and says he can be punctual when he tries. Before their argument goes any further, a customer calls Nicole for an order. She quickly returns to work. Nicole watches Ray and remembers what she learned about him. His younger sister is sick. He stays home to care for her while his parents work. Once they return, he goes out to work himself. He stays at the restaurant until late at night. Nicole initially disliked him because of their first meeting. After learning about his situation, she begins to respect him. Later, 3 customers enter the restaurant. 2 of them head upstairs. Claude tells Nicole that they should leave. Nicole says she will follow after taking out the garbage. Outside, she reflects on her progress. Working is much harder than she expected. At first, she barely understood what she was doing. She also managed to irritate Claude constantly. Now she is finally getting used to the work. Her language skills are improving as well. The lessons with the old woman are clearly helping. Just then, a young woman notices Nicole. Her eyes widen before she quickly runs away. Nicole is confused. She wonders if the girl is an academy student. Since Nicole is dressed like a commoner, she assumes the girl does not recognize her as a noblewoman. Nicole returns upstairs and apologizes for the delay. The old woman thanks her for helping that day. She then asks Nicole to sit down. Claude watches her and admits that she is finally keeping up with the work. The lesson begins soon after. When it ends, Nicole and Claude leave together. Claude hesitantly asks if she is really comfortable working at a commoner's restaurant. Nicole assures him that she is doing fine. She also reminds him that she has kept everything secret. Claude points out that her fiancé might have something to say about her sneaking around. Nicole calmly explains that Chaos has not complained. In fact, he recently gave her cookies and a letter of encouragement at the academy. Claude becomes suspicious. Nicole quickly clarifies that Chaos is her fiancé, not some admirer trying to win her over. They eventually reach a crowded part of town. Nicole says goodbye and disappears into the crowd. Moments later, a woman bumps into her. She apologizes before Nicole can react. Nicole recognizes her as the same woman from earlier. The woman suddenly demands to know what Nicole was doing inside that restaurant with Claude. Nicole freezes. Her little secret has just become a much bigger problem. The woman awkwardly apologizes for confronting Nicole so suddenly. Still, she cannot ignore what she witnessed. Seeing a noblewoman alone with Claude strikes her as inappropriate. Nicole is puzzled and wonders whether she knows him personally. She certainly does not look like his sister. Another possibility crosses her mind. Could she be his fiancée? The woman's eyes instantly fill with tears. Nicole panics and quickly assures her that she has misunderstood. Before she can ask anything else, the stranger desperately begs her not to tell Claude that she was watching them. She spins around and runs off, leaving Nicole standing there in complete bewilderment. She has absolutely no idea what just happened. A few days later, dance class begins at the academy. Chaos approaches Nicole with a bright smile and offers his hand. Secretly, he is thrilled. Nothing should interrupt their time together during this lesson. Since they are engaged, belong to the same year, and are naturally paired for the class, he finally has a perfectly legitimate excuse to stay by her side. Nicole notices his unusually cheerful mood and wonders whether he has suddenly developed a passion for dancing. Her instructor soon calls for the students without partners to follow him. That is when she spots Claude among them. The sight brings the mysterious woman back to mind. Could she really be his fiancée? If so, perhaps she dislikes seeing him spend so much time around Nicole. She decides to ask about his engagement casually. It seems like the easiest way to prevent an unnecessary misunderstanding. Unfortunately, her thoughts wander so far that she steps straight onto Chaos's foot. He cries out in pain. Nicole immediately apologizes, but he simply grins and waves it off. In fact, he tells her she can step on his feet as much as she wants. Apparently, he has decided that a little suffering is a reasonable price for quality time with his fiancée. After the lesson, they sit together while he compliments her improved dancing. She looks surprised and asks whether he really means it. He wonders if she has been practicing lately. Nicole explains that she barely has time for dance lessons because her studies occupy most of her day. Her work at the restaurant also keeps her constantly on the move. That is when she realizes something amusing. Carrying trays, serving customers, and running around all day have strengthened her legs. Her part-time job has accidentally turned into an exercise routine. She finds the thought rather funny, although there is no chance she will be explaining that to anyone. Chaos soon gets up and suggests that they continue practicing. She agrees, but her attention briefly drifts toward Claude, who is practicing by himself. He notices her distraction and asks what has caught her attention. Nicole quickly dismisses it and insists that nothing is wrong. Later, she runs into Claude on her way to the restaurant. He explains that the place is temporarily closed because the owner has caught a cold. When she asks where he is going, he tells her that he has been sent to purchase supplies. Nicole offers to help carry them. He initially refuses, but she insists that she wants to be useful. Eventually, he gives in. As they walk through town, she notices something unusual. He is speaking to her in Iligese. He soon remarks that her speaking ability has improved considerably. Nicole credits both him and Zaloa for helping her. He chuckles and calls her a chatterbox. She immediately bristles and asks who exactly he is calling one. Her earlier encounter with the mysterious woman comes back to her, so she decides this is the perfect opportunity to ask about his engagement. Claude looks puzzled and wants to know why she is suddenly interested. Nicole explains that she saw him practicing alone during dance class and assumed his fiancé might be in another year. He confirms it. She is a first-year student, 2 years below them. Nicole asks what she is like, but her curiosity only makes him more suspicious. She quickly assures him that she is merely wondering. With a sigh, he reveals that the engagement is little more than a formal arrangement. They hardly speak, so he barely knows the girl himself. Nicole finds that rather strange and asks why they do not spend more time together. Claude immediately shuts the question down and tells her it is none of her concern. She apologizes and wisely leaves the subject alone. Once they finish shopping, they return to the restaurant. The owner warmly thanks them for helping out. Nicole wishes her well before heading off. As she walks away, she cannot stop thinking about Claude's situation. He may dismiss the matter so casually, but she understands how lonely such an arrangement can become. In a strange way, his circumstances remind her of Chaos before their relationship began to change. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Lobelia conducts another lesson on understanding a maiden's heart. She claps her hands and announces that class is over. Before leaving, she asks whether anyone has questions. Chaos's hand shoots into the air. He immediately asks whether it is finally time to invite Nicole to the trader's market. Lobelia stares at him and tells him to calm down. The market is still several weeks away. June has not even started. Chaos complains that waiting too long will leave him completely hopeless. She tells him to collect himself and points toward the blackboard. The upcoming soiree is at the end of the month, so that should be his priority. He reluctantly agrees. He wants to escort Nicole properly and refuses to miss another opportunity to see her dressed beautifully. Still, his frustration quickly returns. He wonders why he ever spent so much time on student council duties. Now that he has resigned, Nicole is busier than ever. He does not want to interfere with her ambitions, but standing around doing nothing makes him feel useless. The princess watches him fidget and reminds him that making a scene will not solve anything. Lobelia adds that patience is essential. That finally pushes him over the edge. Chaos storms out of the classroom, declaring that he is completely hopeless when it comes to understanding a girl's heart. His classmates watch him leave with the exhausted expressions of people who have seen this disaster before. As he hurries through the halls, he wrestles with the same problem. He refuses to stand in Nicole's way. At the same time, if he never takes a step forward, the distance between them will never shrink. He thinks about all the gifts he has given her and wonders what else he can possibly do. His thoughts are interrupted when he spots Nicole nearby. She is sighing just as heavily as he is. He immediately approaches and asks whether something is troubling her. She says she is not exactly worried, but he assures her that he will listen if something is bothering her. Nicole finally brings up Claude, one of the exchange program applicants. She explains that he already has a fiancé, yet he barely seems to acknowledge her. She wonders whether something is wrong between them. Chaos recognizes the name at once. Claude is the student who confronted Nicole during the exchange briefing. He is also the eldest son of the Basile family and one of the academy's most accomplished students. His grades consistently place him among the top 5, making him a strong candidate for the exchange program. Kyoza's expression tightens when he realizes how casually Nicole is discussing Claude's engagement. Jealousy immediately starts knocking on the door. He wonders how close she has become to him and asks when they started discussing such personal matters. Nicole quickly explains that they only talked while discussing their plans to study abroad. Kyoza assumes that exchange applicants naturally discuss such things among themselves. Even so, he cannot understand why Claude's situation concerns her so much. He advises her not to pry into another person's private affairs. Claude is probably too busy preparing for his studies abroad anyway. Nicole accepts the explanation. Soon, Kyoza notices that she is preparing to head home. He offers to escort her, but she politely declines because she needs to return a book to the library first. He immediately volunteers to take it back himself. He takes the book and tells her to get ready while he handles the return. Nicole thanks him, although his sudden enthusiasm leaves her slightly puzzled. Kyoza, meanwhile, is delighted. At last, he has found another chance to spend time with her. Unfortunately, that excitement lasts only a few seconds. As he walks through the doorway, he collides with someone and lands flat on the floor. He quickly apologizes and asks whether the other person is hurt. His attention soon falls on the book in the man's hands. It belongs to Claude. Kyoza looks up and recognizes him. Claude calmly asks if something is wrong. He assures him that everything is fine, yet he cannot help studying the young man's cold expression. Claude is hardly the warmest person around. Kyoza begins wondering whether he treats his own fiancée the same way. If he keeps ignoring her, she may become accustomed to living without him. One day, she might even ask to end their engagement. By that point, regret would be worthless. The thought makes Kyoza pause. He suddenly understands something painfully familiar. Claude is making the exact mistake he once made with Nicole. He ignored her feelings and failed to realize how deeply his neglect hurt her. The memory leaves a bitter ache in his chest. Even so, he forces a smile and places a hand on Claude's shoulder. He mentions the upcoming function and encourages him to do his best. Claude stares at him as though he has completely lost his mind. Kyoza simply says goodbye and walks away. Left behind, Claude can only wonder what that was about. Before long, May comes to an end. The academy prepares for its first grand event of the new school year. The soirée carries a relaxed spring atmosphere. Noblewomen arrive in elegant dresses inspired by the season. Nicole and Kyoza attend together. For the first time, they step into a social event as third-year students. The soirée arrives at the end of May, filling the academy with the soft colors of spring. The first-year students are especially excited because this is their first real taste of high society. The unmarried girls gather together, chatting and enjoying themselves, while Nicole quietly watches from the sidelines. The sight brings back memories of her own first soirée. Back then, she spends the evening surrounded by other unengaged ladies, but they are so nervous around her that she eventually decides keeping her distance is easier. Since that day, she has practically become the academy's most loyal wallflower. Today, however, she notices something different. There is not a lonely flower in sight. Kyoza soon approaches and compliments her dress, telling her she looks as lovely as a spring blossom. She thanks him politely, but her attention quickly wanders toward the other ladies. She admires Lobelia's elegant blue dress with its pale yellow frills, followed by Princess Caroline's soft pink gown. To Nicole, they look like spring fairies. Kyoza is left wondering where his carefully prepared compliment went, but she does not seem to notice his disappointment. Instead, she suddenly realizes that this may be one of the last times she sees everyone dressed so beautifully. Third-year students only attend the May, August, and November soirees, which means there are only 2 more before graduation. He notices her sudden sentimentality and asks what is on her mind. Nicole brushes it aside and explains that she will simply miss seeing everyone dressed like this after they graduate. He reminds her that she can still meet Lobelia in the future. She agrees, although she points out that she may leave for Illegale to continue her studies. He assures her that she will return once her education is complete. Nicole smiles and tells herself not to think so far ahead. Her engagement may eventually be called off, but for now, she still needs to prepare for life as a nobleman's wife. Unfortunately, studying abroad has been occupying more and more of her thoughts lately. Before she can dwell on it, Zeke calls out to them and pulls their attention back to the gathering. As Nicole looks across the ballroom, a quiet realization settles in her heart. Whether she studies abroad or remains here, she cannot truly picture herself marrying Chaos and spending the rest of her life surrounded by high society. Her gaze soon lands on Claude and the young woman standing beside him. Nicole immediately suspects that she must be his fiancé. The girl keeps stealing shy glances at him, yet he barely acknowledges her existence. Nicole feels sorry for her. Standing beside your own fiancé while being treated like a stranger hardly sounds like anyone's idea of romance. Her concern grows when another boy approaches the girl and asks whether she is a first-year student. Claude immediately draws her closer. The sudden gesture makes the girl flinch, while the boy quickly notices the situation and walks away after realizing she already has a fiancé. Nicole quietly relaxes. Claude may be distant, but at least he seems willing to protect her when necessary. Nearby, Chaos comments on the first-year students, pointing out how awkwardly they gather around the edges of the ballroom. Nicole smiles and says that it is understandable because everything is still new to them. She looks forward to watching them gradually become comfortable with high society. He catches something strange in her wording and asks why she sounds as though she will not be part of that future. Nicole immediately stiffens and brushes off the question. Before he can pursue it, Lobelia notices her and pulls her into a conversation about their dresses. The evening continues without further trouble, and eventually, the soirée comes to an end. Nicole settles onto a bench and decides it is probably time to head home. As she looks around the quieting ballroom, a familiar pair catches her attention. The young woman calls after Claude and politely asks whether he can spare some time for her after his studies. She admits that she may be bothering him and promises she will not keep him long. He remains silent for a moment before responding coldly. He reminds her that she has her own studies and tells her not to waste her time on him. Nicole watches from behind a tree, stunned by how mercilessly he speaks to her. The girl calls after him, but he simply walks away without looking back. Nicole cannot bear to watch any longer. She steps forward and asks whether the girl is all right. The young woman looks startled when she recognizes her as a noble lady. She immediately apologizes for the way she treated Nicole before, but Nicole assures her that there is nothing to forgive. She had been dressed as a commoner at the time, so the confusion was understandable. She offers her handkerchief, and the girl accepts it gratefully. After a moment's hesitation, Nicole asks whether she would like to talk about what happened. The girl agrees, and they sit together. She introduces herself as Morris, Claude's fiancé. Nicole gently asks whether he has always treated her this way. Sadly, Morris confirms that he has. She believes he dislikes her because he never discusses his plans to study abroad. Whenever she tries to learn more about his interests, he simply tells her that it is none of her concern. Over time, she has convinced herself that she must not be working hard enough to earn his affection. Nicole immediately objects. She cannot accept that explanation. Morris clutches her dress and admits that all she wants is to improve their relationship, even if she can only move forward one tiny step at a time. After thanking Nicole for listening, she takes her leave. Nicole watches her disappear and feels an unexpected sense of familiarity. Morris reminds her of the person she used to be. The difference is that Nicole eventually stopped hoping, while Morris is still holding on to that hope with both hands. She sincerely wishes things will work out for her. With the evening behind her, Nicole's thoughts turn toward the future her parents once planned for her. She understands why they chose that path. If she follows the life prepared for her, she can enjoy security and comfort. She will avoid unnecessary hardship and receive the respect that comes with her position. Yet some part of her still longs for something beyond that comfortable cage. When she first tells her parents that she wants to study abroad, they are understandably shocked. They are gentle people who rarely cause trouble, so the thought of their daughter traveling alone to another country naturally worries them. They also wonder whether she simply wants to escape because of her broken engagement. In some ways, they are not entirely wrong. Nicole has been hurt, and she does want distance from everything surrounding her. What they do not know is how badly Chaos once neglected her. She never tells them, so she cannot blame them for misunderstanding her motives. Once she finally explains what happened, her parents admit that they had no idea she had been treated that way. Chaos's parents, meanwhile, continue supporting her without hesitation. They repeatedly tell her not to worry about their son and encourage her to chase her own dreams. Nicole feels incredibly fortunate to have so many people who understand her. Even so, one secret continues to trouble her. If they discover that she has been disguising herself as a commoner and secretly working at a restaurant, they might reconsider the engagement. Her thoughts naturally return to Illigale. She wonders whether women in her own kingdom could someday enjoy the same freedom. Not long ago, women were not even permitted to attend the academy. If society has already changed that much, perhaps it can continue moving forward. Maybe one day, marriage will be decided by love instead of family status and social expectations. That thought makes Nicole sit upright. Love. She quietly wonders what it truly feels like. The romances in her books make it sound almost magical. Hearts race. Emotions burn brighter than summer stars. She remembers the excitement she feels when she first meets Chaos, but those memories soon become tangled with everything that follows. Her thoughts drift back to Morris, and she begins wondering whether the love described in those stories truly exists. If it does, Nicole quietly hopes that someday, she will experience it for herself. The next morning, Chaos heads toward the academy with a gloomy look. Even after finally attending another soiree with Nicole, he feels they have barely grown any closer. At this rate, inviting her to the traders' market seems nearly impossible. Before he can dwell on it, a noisy group of young men surrounds him. He turns around and finds himself trapped. One points at him and demands that he pay for what he has done to his fiancée. Another orders him to repent for his sins. Chaos stares at them, completely baffled. He has no idea why he is suddenly being put on trial. One of them angrily blames him for changing his fiancée's behavior. After seeing how happily Nicole spends her time alone, their own partners have apparently started doing the same. Their dates are becoming less frequent, while their fiancés now enjoy their days off without them. Chaos tries to escape, but the group corners him against the wall. They insist that Nicole is responsible for this sudden wave of independence. With no other choice, he bolts toward the student council room and bursts inside. Everyone stares at him in confusion. Even Caroline wonders what kind of trouble he has brought this time. He explains that a strange group of men is chasing him. Before anyone can react, the door flies open and another young man storms in. He introduces himself as Marius and immediately declares that Chaos is the root of all evil. According to him, the man has turned his gentle fiancée into a completely different person. He demands a duel, leaving everyone wondering how the morning became this ridiculous. Chaos insists that he has never even met him before. Marius then drops to his knees and describes his once peaceful life. His fiancée used to stay beside him, smile sweetly, and eagerly discuss the books they read together. Now she secretly goes out alone. Even worse, when he lends her books, she no longer reads them right away. Chaos tells him to calm down, but Marius grabs his collar and blames Nicole for everything. In his eyes, she has shown other women how enjoyable freedom can be. Zeke finally understands and suggests that Marius may simply be overthinking things. Perhaps his fiancée has discovered a new hobby. He admits that could be true, but then remembers a few suspicious details. She sneaks out in plain clothes. She looks around as though she is hiding something. Sometimes, she even returns smelling like men's perfume. She also mentions keeping her schedule free for a special day next week. Chaos's mouth drops open. Zeke and Albert exchange worried looks. Those clues do not exactly scream harmless hobby. Marius, however, suddenly convinces himself that he is being foolish. He decides there is no reason to worry about her going out alone and thanks everyone before leaving. Once he disappears, the others silently stare at one another. They all realize that something is definitely suspicious. As they leave the council room, they overhear several young women discussing Nicole's lifestyle. Many have started visiting places they enjoy by themselves. Some even ask their fiancés to accompany them so they can experience the same freedom. Albert realizes that her influence is spreading faster than expected. Caroline points out that this is not necessarily a bad thing. Women are becoming more confident, and the town is beginning to adapt. Cafes introduce single seating. Theaters offer discounts for women. Magazines even recommend places where ladies can spend time alone. Zeke admits that the change feels slightly dangerous from a man's perspective, but he agrees that women deserve that freedom. Albert warns that social progress also comes with risks. Some men may take advantage of women who are alone, so everyone should remain cautious. Chaos immediately grows concerned. Nicole is beautiful, and the thought of some shady man targeting her makes his stomach twist. He does not want to interfere with her newfound independence, yet he cannot simply sit back. Later, she changes into her commoner clothes and heads toward the restaurant. Ko secretly follows from a distance. He knows his friends would probably call it a terrible idea, but after hearing those warnings, he cannot stay away. He decides to interfere only if she is genuinely in danger. As she walks through town, several men approach her. One asks whether she is alone and offers to show her somewhere interesting. She politely refuses and says she already has plans. Another tells her that being alone must be lonely, but she calmly replies that she is perfectly happy by herself. Ko watches from afar with growing pride. She handles every situation without trouble. He realizes that she has become far more confident. For a moment, he considers pretending to meet her by chance. Then he remembers that she would probably smile, say goodbye, and continue on her way. That would hurt more than expected. Instead, he watches her enter a shop to buy a handkerchief. The shopkeeper asks whether it is a gift, but she explains that it is for herself. Ko watches through the window and quietly thinks that if she had asked him, he would have bought her an entire collection. Before he can become too sentimental, another commotion catches his attention. After finishing her purchase, Nicole steps outside and hears a strange noise. She turns around and sees Ko holding a young man by the collar. The boy angrily tells him to move because he is about to lose sight of Cecily. Nicole recognizes her as a viscountess from the academy. The young man then reveals that he is her fiancé. He claims he is only following her because he worries about her safety. Nicole is horrified. From her perspective, secretly following a woman without her knowledge is practically stalking. She turns to Ko, expecting him to stop this nonsense. He takes the criticism like a direct hit. The young man quickly explains that he has no intention of bothering Cecily or accusing her of anything. He simply wants to make sure she remains safe. She is still unconvinced. If he is genuinely worried, she tells him, he should speak with Cecily instead of secretly watching her. Ko tries to interrupt, but quietly suggests that she could be meeting another man. Nicole refuses to believe it. A respectable noblewoman would never act so recklessly, so there must be another explanation. Their suspicions deepen when Cecily enters a second-hand clothing store. Ko wonders why a noblewoman would visit such a place. Nicole suggests that she might be buying clothes to donate to a church or orphanage. Her fiancé immediately becomes emotional and nearly turns her into a saint. Ko remains skeptical. He points out that she could simply have sent a maid. Rather than keep guessing, Nicole decides they should investigate. He agrees and tells Marius to wait outside. The two quietly enter the shop and watch Cecily speak with the owner. Nicole suggests that they pretend to be a couple so they can investigate without drawing attention. Ko nearly short-circuits at the word pretend. They are already engaged, after all. Inside, Cecily asks whether the shopkeeper has a smaller size of a particular outfit. He confirms that it is already the smallest available. Then he realizes she is shopping for men's clothing. Nicole and Ko exchange stunned looks. She continues examining the garments and rejects anything too flashy because she does not want to attract attention. Ko immediately suspects the worst. Perhaps the mysterious man in her. Life is simply short. Nicole refuses to jump to conclusions. There has to be a reasonable explanation. Meanwhile, her fiancé waits outside, completely convinced that their investigation will uncover something wholesome. Unfortunately, the men's clothing suggests that this mystery is only getting started. After leaving the shop, Marius rushes over and asks how things went. Ko gives him a grim answer, saying the situation has taken a darker turn. Nicole quickly corrects him. She insists that Cecily is still completely innocent and nowhere near the so-called gray area. Just then, they spot her entering a perfume shop. He wonders if they should investigate again, but she finally puts her foot down. Spying on her has already gone too far. They should simply apologize and leave. Ko realizes she is right. Whatever Cecily does is none of his business, and interfering any further could easily make Nicole dislike him. He agrees and offers to escort her home. Before they can leave, Marius notices Cecily exiting the shop with a small package. He wonders what she bought since she usually prefers scented sachets. Ko examines the shop and realizes she probably purchased men's fragrance. Marius is impressed by his knowledge, so he explains that he once helped Caroline choose a gift for a prince. The moment the words leave his mouth, he remembers Lobelia's warning about mentioning other women and silently regrets it. Nicole assumes the fragrance is probably a gift for Cecily's father. After growing tired of guessing, she decides to ask her directly. She tells the two men to wait outside and walks after her. Chaos tries to stop her, but she is already gone. When Nicole approaches, Cecily smiles and explains that she has plans later and is simply preparing for them. She notices that she still has some free time, so she invites Nicole for tea. She gladly accepts. Once they sit down, Nicole struggles to find the right words. Asking about someone's private life feels rude, but her fiancé is clearly worried. Eventually, she asks whether Cecily is meeting someone later. Cecily laughs and admits that she is going to see someone who may not even want to meet her. Nicole's eyes widen. That answer creates even more questions. She carefully asks whether Cecily's fiancé knows about this person. Cecily immediately panics and insists that he must never find out. Nicole becomes even more confused. Somehow, she is hiding this from her fiancé while casually discussing it with her. She finally asks why she is meeting this mysterious person. Cecily lowers her voice and says the truth must remain secret. Meanwhile, Chaos and Marius hide nearby and struggle to hear the conversation. He cannot make out a single word, while Marius becomes strangely captivated by the sight of his fiancée enjoying tea with Nicole. He says that watching her from afar has revealed another side of her charm. Chaos wonders if he would feel the same way watching Nicole like this. Curiosity gets the better of him, and he stands up to demand an explanation. He even suggests moving closer, despite knowing Nicole would probably consider that another terrible idea. Their concern proves justified when Cecily begins describing a secret encounter. She talks about men, physical excitement, and the thrill of watching them fight. Marius nearly stops breathing. Chaos's eyes widen as the truth finally becomes clear. They have completely misunderstood the situation. Nicole asks whether Cecily genuinely enjoys this activity. Marius, meanwhile, becomes strangely delighted by how excited she sounds. He even calls her adorable. Chaos grabs him and tells him to return to reality. Before the conversation can become any stranger, he calls for Nicole. Unfortunately, the women have already left. Cecily says goodbye and heads off, leaving Nicole wondering whether she should have stopped her. Chaos soon catches up and apologizes for making her wait. She realizes that she completely forgot about him and Marius. When he asks what she is doing there, Nicole leads them towards Cecily's destination. Soon, shouting reaches them from nearby. A crowd surrounds a tent, and someone announces that a fight has broken out. Nicole immediately realizes that Cecily must be inside. Marius panics and asks if she is really there. She confirms it and heads straight for the entrance. Chaos tries to stop her because the place looks dangerous, but she refuses to stay behind. Inside, the crowd is packed tightly around two men arguing over a fight. A drunken spectator makes matters worse, and chaos quickly spreads. Nicole spots Cecily and warns her to move. At that moment, a bottle flies through the crowd. Marius immediately shields her from the impact. Chaos sees the danger, grabs a nearby sword, and strikes the drunken man down before pointing the blade at him. He coldly asks whether the man cannot see that he is frightening Nicole. The drunkard instantly realizes he has made a terrible mistake. Once things settle, Chaos checks on Nicole and assures her that everything is under control. She is relieved to see him unharmed. Then she admits that she would have felt terrible if anything happened to him because she would not have been able to face Lady Cecily's mother during their next tea meeting. Chaos freezes. Another tea with his mother? He finally realizes that Cecily has been spending time with her as well. Meanwhile, Marius checks on his fiancée, and she explains how everything began. Inspired by Nicole, she decides to spend more time alone in town. At first, walking through familiar streets without an escort feels strange. Soon, however, she discovers how exciting independence can be. One day, she wanders into a quiet alley and stumbles upon a boxing match. The fierce exchanges and roaring crowd immediately captivate her. She becomes fascinated by the fighters and cannot stop thinking about the match. Since she cannot openly tell her family about her new hobby, she disguises herself as a man so she can attend unnoticed. Chaos finally understands why she bought men's clothing. The perfume makes sense too. It has nothing to do with another man. The boxing tent becomes hot and stuffy, so Cecily uses the fragrance on her handkerchief instead of smelling salts. Even her mysterious schedule now makes sense. Her favorite fighter is about to face his longtime rival, Goldino, in an important rematch. After barely losing their previous match, he now has a chance to settle the score. Cecily is determined to cheer him on. Nicole realizes that she cannot bring herself to stop her. She is clearly enjoying herself. She only hopes she remains safe. Cecily then apologizes to Marius for causing so much trouble. She worries that he must be disappointed to discover that his refined fiancé secretly enjoys watching men punch each other. Instead of judging her, he takes her hand and assures her that he loves her exactly as she is. He admits that he recognized her despite the disguise because he knows her too well. Marius has never watched boxing before, but he happily offers to learn about it if it makes her happy. Cecily laughs and asks whether he plans to wear a disguise too. He proudly declares that he absolutely will. Nicole watches them with a smile. She realizes how fortunate Cecily is to have someone who accepts her interests instead of trying to change her. Chaos, meanwhile, sighs with relief now that he knows the entire investigation was a gigantic false alarm. As everyone prepares to leave, he remembers something Nicole mentioned earlier. She said she was meeting his mother for tea. He asks about it, and she explains that Lady Cecily's mother wants to give her some reference books from her academy days. He is surprised that his mother arranged it without telling him. Nicole prepares to leave, but he immediately offers to accompany her. She is surprised by his eagerness and explains that the meeting is at a women-only salon, so he cannot enter anyway. Chaos realizes that fate has once again shut the door in his face. Nicole, meanwhile, feels happy for Cecily. She has discovered something she genuinely enjoys, and Marius accepts her without hesitation. With him beside her, she can pursue her unusual hobby without fear. Nicole quietly compares their situation with her own. Finding someone willing to accompany her on her journey of study seems almost impossible. During the break, Nicole sits beside Lady Mattia, who sighs when she mentions that the trader's market is approaching. Nicole notices her troubled expression and asks what is wrong. Mattia admits that she doubts her fiancé even wants to go with her. Nicole gently points out that she cannot know that unless she asks him. After all, she went alone last year. Perhaps he might surprise her this time. Mattia immediately shakes her head. She cannot bring herself to invite him because she fears he would only find it bothersome. Seeing how hesitant she is, Nicole offers another option. She invites Mattia to go with her instead. Mattia looks surprised, but Nicole assures her that she knows the market well and can show her around. Mattia worries that accompanying another noblewoman while having a fiancé of her own could attract unwanted gossip. Nicole understands. She has grown comfortable going places without chaos, but she does not want Mattia to become the subject of rumors simply because she wants to enjoy herself. There has to be a better way. While Nicole considers it, Chaos is dealing with a completely different problem. During class, he brings up the upcoming traders market with Lobelia. She immediately criticizes his sloppy appearance and reminds him that good manners involve more than simply choosing the right words. Chaos tries again. He asks whether she will accompany him. Lobelia raises an eyebrow and asks what he intends to do if she refuses. He confidently declares that they are going together. That earns him another lecture. Giving someone an order is hardly the same as inviting them. Realizing his mistake, he awkwardly asks her to accompany him. Lobelia remains unimpressed and tells him that begging only makes him sound more pathetic. The princess watches their exchange with quiet amusement. Chaos, however, refuses to surrender. He asks again with renewed determination. This time, Lobelia finally says she might consider it. He nearly melts with relief. At last, he has made some progress. He immediately starts thinking about inviting her for tea after class so they can discuss the outing. The following day, Nicole arrives at the classroom and finds Caroline there. After learning that the princess is available, she approaches her with a request. She nervously asks whether Caroline would accompany her to the traders' market. Caroline's eyes widen. Chaos looks as though he has just been struck by lightning. He immediately protests. He and Caroline have known each other since childhood. They practically grew up together. Yet now, his fiancée is inviting her to the market right in front of him. Caroline quickly insists that he has misunderstood. She has no idea why he is reacting like this. Before their argument can spiral any further, Lobelia asks Nicole to explain herself. The reason soon becomes clear. Nicole is worried about Mattia. If Claude does not invite her, she may end up spending the day alone. Nicole considered taking her herself, but she fears people will gossip and accuse her of recruiting another member into her so-called loner club. Chaos nearly chokes at the name. Lobelia quickly understands her intention. Nicole simply wants Mattia and Claude to have a chance to spend time together before he potentially leaves for Illegale. Since Mattia is still a first-year student, this could be one of their last opportunities to make a pleasant memory together. Nicole admits that asking Caroline for help is somewhat selfish, but she hopes the princess can make the situation easier. Lobelia suggests a simple solution. Caroline can invite both Nicole and Chaos as well. That way, it will look like a casual gathering between friends. With the crown princess involved, nobody is likely to object. Caroline happily agrees. She even has a plan for Chaos. Once they arrive, she will find an excuse to leave early. That will give him the perfect opportunity to spend some time alone with Nicole. Chaos immediately approves. Nicole thanks Caroline sincerely before leaving. As she glances around the classroom, she wonders why everyone had gathered there in the first place. Caroline brushes it off, while Lobelia vaguely calls it a discussion about female behavior. Nicole decides that some questions are better left unanswered. Before long, the day of the traders' market finally arrives. Mattia approaches Claude with a nervous smile and tells him how happy she is that he came despite his busy schedule. He assures her that it is no trouble. Nearby, Caroline is enjoying the lively market and thanks everyone for accepting her invitation. Nicole feels relieved. Asking the crown princess for such a favor had been rather bold, so seeing everything work out puts her at ease. Chaos turns to her and asks whether there is anything she wants to see. Nicole says nothing has caught her eye yet. He points toward a crowded stall and suggests that they take a look. She agrees and invites Mattia to join them. The group wanders from one stall to another until Caroline eventually announces that she has to leave. Her wedding preparations are piling up, so she cannot stay any longer. Nicole thanks her for helping them. Caroline smiles and says she wanted to visit the market anyway, so Nicole has actually done her a favor. With that, she bids them farewell. Chaos watches her leave and briefly wonders whether Caroline has been enjoying herself a little too much around Nicole. Before he can think about it, Claude announces that he should leave as well. Nicole quickly calls after him and suggests that they stay a little longer. Chaos supports her, reminding him that Caroline specifically told them to enjoy the outing. Leaving immediately would make it seem as though they had no fun at all. Of course, Chaos has another reason. With Caroline gone, he finally has a chance to spend some time alone with Nicole. As they move deeper into the crowded market, the path becomes narrower. Chaos sees his opportunity and takes Nicole's hand. He tells her not to get lost before leading her through the crowd. For once, everything seems to be going according to plan. They eventually reach a quieter street. Chaos breathes out in relief and asks whether she is all right. Then he looks down. His expression changes instantly. The hand he has been holding does not belong to Nicole. Claude is standing beside him. Chaos has somehow mistaken his fiancée's hand for Claude's. Claude gives him a knowing look and asks why he suddenly decided to hold hands and drag him through the market. Chaos is left speechless. His carefully planned romantic moment has officially become a disaster. Elsewhere, Nicole and Mattia realize that the two men have disappeared. Mattia asks what they should do, so Nicole suggests that they keep walking until they find them. As they search, Nicole apologizes for dragging her into the outing. Mattia quickly assures her that she does not mind. In fact, she was surprised when she learned they would be joining the princess. That invitation had also encouraged Claude to come. Mattia then admits that she envies how naturally Nicole seems to get along with Chaos. Nicole is surprised. She explains that she actually has very few pleasant memories of the market. The year before last, she went alone. Last year, she did the same. It had felt awkward at first, but she eventually learned to enjoy her own company. Mattia lowers her gaze and admits that she does not think she could be that independent. Nicole gently tells her that she does not need to become like her. She chose that path because she had already given up on repairing her relationship with Chaos. Mattia does not have to make the same choice. Their conversation is interrupted when Mattia notices a beautiful bracelet in a nearby shop. Nicole shows her one she bought the previous year and explains that matching bracelets used to be popular among couples at the academy. She missed the trend back then, but she still remembers it fondly. They continue searching for the others until Nicole remembers the fountain farther ahead. It would be the perfect meeting point. However, she also remembers that the area attracts men who often approach women traveling alone. Worried that Mattia might feel uncomfortable, she asks her to stay there while she checks the fountain. She promises to return quickly. Meanwhile, Chaos is becoming increasingly frustrated. He only wanted a little time alone with Nicole. Now he has lost her again. Claude follows him through the crowded streets and points out that the girls could have gone anywhere. Chaos studies him quietly. Earlier, Claude had been eager to leave. Now he seems determined to find Mattia. The change catches Chaos's attention. He asks whether Claude has any idea where the girls might have gone. Claude points toward the fountain. If they became separated, that would be the most likely place for them to meet. Chaos agrees and heads that way. Then he notices that Claude has already walked ahead. He follows after him, quietly wondering what has changed. After keeping his distance from Mattia for so long, he is suddenly the one rushing to find her. Nicole reaches the fountain and scans the area, but neither Chaos nor Claude is anywhere to be seen. She decides to turn back when a stranger approaches and asks whether she is alone. She politely tries to dismiss him, but he refuses to take the hint. He remarks that it is a shame for such a pretty girl to wander around by herself and suggests that she spend some time with him instead. Then he places a hand on her shoulder. Nicole stiffens and firmly tells him that she is waiting for someone. She orders him to let go. The man only grins. He admits that he has been watching her for some time and knows she is searching for someone. Nicole's eyes widen as she realizes the situation is far more serious than she first thought. She prepares to stomp on his foot and make a run for it, but before she can act, someone seizes his wrist and pulls his hand away. Nicole looks up in surprise. Claude is standing beside her. The stranger demands to know what his problem is, but Claude gives him a cold warning to leave. His confidence vanishes almost instantly, and he retreats without another word. Nicole thanks him for stepping in before asking where Mattia is. He tells her that she is waiting near the accessory stall. Then he walks away without another explanation, leaving Nicole slightly perplexed. Moments later, Chaos comes rushing toward her. Relief washes over his face when he sees that she is safe. He admits that he has been desperately looking for her. Nicole asks why he disappeared with Claude earlier, and he immediately protests. He insists that he never intended to go anywhere with him. He simply mistook Claude's hand for hers and dragged him through the crowd by accident. Nicole stares at him. She cannot believe he genuinely confused the two of them. She jokingly asks whether they really look that similar to him. He quickly denies it, although his embarrassment makes the answer rather obvious. Once everyone reunites, Nicole notices that Mattia seems unusually dejected. Claude approaches her and says that they should head home. Chaos agrees. He points out that Nicole must also be tired after being separated in the crowded market. He offers to escort her while Claude takes Mattia home. Claude accepts and starts walking away with his fiancée. Chaos turns toward Nicole and tells her that they should leave as well. She suddenly apologizes and says there is still something she needs to do. She tells him to go ahead without her. Chaos is caught completely off guard, but Nicole follows after Claude and Mattia instead. Soon, Mattia calls out to Claude and asks him to wait. With visible hesitation, she holds out a small gift and explains that she wants to thank him for today. It is a pair of matching black slate accessories. Her cheeks redden as she admits that she bought them because she thought they could wear matching ones. Claude studies the gift before quietly apologizing. He says that he cannot accept it. Mattia falls silent. Her expression sinks as she turns away and apologizes for putting him in an uncomfortable position. Watching from nearby, Nicole can hardly believe what she is seeing. How can someone reject such a simple and heartfelt gift so coldly? She silently fumes until Chaos approaches and murmurs that Claude truly seems to have a heart of ice. Nicole glances at him in surprise, but he continues. He reminds her how frantic Claude became when they were separated. The man may never admit it, but his actions speak for themselves. He was clearly worried about Mattia. Chaos then tells Nicole to look ahead. Even now, Claude is following behind Mattia to make sure she reaches home safely. Nicole watches them and grows more puzzled. If Claude truly dislikes his fiancée, why does he continue protecting her? That unanswered question lingers as the traders' market comes to an end and summer break begins. For Nicole, however, the vacation offers little opportunity to relax. Her language test is approaching, so she spends long hours studying at the library. She also continues working at the restaurant twice a week. Even during her free moments, her thoughts return to Mattia and everything that happened at the market. Nicole wants to comfort her, but she cannot exactly reveal that she secretly followed them. All she can do is hope Mattia's sadness fades with time. One afternoon, while Nicole is studying in her room, her maid enters with a letter from Chaos. She thanks her before the maid reminds her not to push herself too hard. Exhaustion could easily undermine all the effort she has invested in her studies. Nicole promises to take care of herself and opens the letter. Chaos writes that her language test is drawing near and hopes she is not overworking herself. He suggests that they go somewhere together so she can take a proper break. Nicole reads the message thoughtfully. Her parents have been saying the same thing lately, so she agrees to go whenever it is convenient for him. Elsewhere, Chaos is having tea with his friends at a quiet cafe. He praises the place and remarks that the tea is surprisingly good despite the old-fashioned atmosphere. Zeke agrees, while Albert reminds him not to get carried away. Chaos laughs and assures them that he knows. Still, he cannot shake the feeling that too much time has passed since he last saw Nicole. She is completely absorbed in her studies, but disappearing until the test is over seems excessive even to him. He wants to find the perfect place for their outing. His friends tease him for becoming so enthusiastic after spending years barely paying attention to his fiancée. Chaos ignores the jab and thanks them for their help. Since they will probably all marry after graduation, they know their time together will become much more limited once their responsibilities increase. For now, they intend to enjoy what time they have. Chaos smiles and decides to find Nicole a gift as well. Then something outside catches his attention. A young woman is cleaning the area nearby. From a distance, she looks remarkably like Nicole. He dismisses the thought at once. Surely a noblewoman would never be doing such work. Then he notices a familiar hair ornament. His eyes widen. It really is Nicole. And standing nearby is Claude. Chaos is left staring in disbelief. His fiancée is secretly working as a commoner, and Claude is there with her. Meanwhile, Nicole finishes her shift and returns home as though nothing unusual has happened. Her maid welcomes her and assumes she has returned from another productive day at the library. Nicole's heart pounds as she confirms it. Then the maid casually mentions that Chaos stopped by earlier. Nicole immediately grows uneasy and asks whether something happened. The maid explains that he said he happened to be nearby and decided to visit. However, after discovering that Nicole was supposedly at the library, he seemed somewhat disappointed. Nicole forces herself to remain composed. She says she will write him a letter and thanks her maid before retreating to her room. She begins by apologizing for missing him and asking whether there was something he wanted to discuss. Then her pen stops. A troubling possibility enters her mind. What if Chaos went to the library afterward and discovered that she had never been there? She could claim that they simply missed each other. But that would only create another lie to cover the first. Nicole eventually finishes the letter and seals it. She stares at the envelope with growing unease. One secret has already forced her to create another, and now the excuses are beginning to pile up. She wonders whether she can still call herself a faithful fiancé. For now, she can only convince herself that everything needs to remain hidden until her test is over. Outside the house, Chaos remains nearby, silently watching her window. Nicole has never held a proper job before, so when she starts working as a waitress, she relies on the manners and careful speech she learned from her household servants. For the most part, she manages well. Some customers, however, are rude enough to make her question her life choices. After dealing with another troublesome patron, she approaches Zaloa, who tells her that it is fortunate Claude was there to help. Nicole thanks her and admits that he really did save her. Zaloa then recalls how she used to handle violent drunks in her younger days. Whenever someone caused trouble, she would simply smack them around and throw them out herself. Claude listens quietly before turning to Nicole with practical advice. If anyone becomes aggressive, she should call him immediately and hide in the back. Zaloa smiles at his concern and teases him for being surprisingly sweet toward Nicole. Claude becomes embarrassed and silently worries that his secret might be exposed because of some trouble at work. Before the conversation goes further, Zaloa mentions the approaching flower festival and asks whether either of them has plans. Claude says no, but Nicole immediately brings up his fiancée. Zaloa looks surprised and asks who she is. When Nicole mentions Mattia, Claude's expression tightens. He reluctantly admits that she is technically his fiancée. Zaloa becomes delighted and asks whether he has chosen a flower for her. Claude falls silent, while Nicole remembers the trader's market and realizes the flower festival is just around the corner. Zaloa then shares a story from her youth. She moved to town because of her husband's work, but he became so busy that they rarely spent time together. One year, he even forgot their flower festival plans. While wandering around alone, she met a charming young man who eventually became her husband. Nicole listens in surprise as Zaloa recalls how passionate they were back then. The story stays on her mind even after class ends. As Claude prepares to leave, Nicole calls him back and asks about the festival. He sighs and tells her that it is none of her business. She agrees, but points out that if he keeps ignoring Mattia, another man might eventually win her over, just like in Zaloa's story. Claude gives a bitter laugh and says he hopes that happens. Nicole stares at him in disbelief. She asks whether he truly intends to treat his fiancée this way. Perhaps Mattia would be happier with someone who actually cherishes her. Then she asks the question that has been bothering her for some time. Does he really dislike Mattia? Claude quietly says no. He simply believes she would be better off without someone like him. Nicole freezes. His answer is completely different from what she expected. He does not hate Mattia. If anything, he may care about her enough to push her away. Before Nicole can make sense of it, the day of her outing with Chaos arrives. He apologizes for keeping her waiting and offers his hand. She accepts it while wondering whether he has truly decided to keep trying. She once believed their engagement would have ended by now, yet he is still here and still making an effort. He smiles and tells her there is no need to thank him. As her fiancé, picking her up is simply his duty. He then compliments her dress. Nicole explains that her mother bought it for her, and Chaos secretly takes that as a good sign. He suggests visiting the lavender fields in the park, and she happily agrees. When they arrive, Nicole is captivated by the scenery and sweet fragrance. Chaos watches her reaction with satisfaction. His friends helped him prepare the perfect date. First comes the lavender field. Then he plans to hold her hand while they walk. If everything goes smoothly, he might finally win her heart. Unfortunately, the plan lasts about 5 minutes. Nicole spots a honeybee and panics. Chaos quickly swats it away and proudly declares that everything is fine. The bee clearly disagrees. It circles his face, then attracts several others. Soon, he is fighting for his life against an entire swarm. Nicole watches in disbelief as their romantic date turns into a battle against nature. Once the chaos settles, she buys him some lemonade and tells him to rest. Chaos apologizes for the embarrassing spectacle and tries to move on. Then he reaches into his pocket and realizes his notebook is missing. Elsewhere, 2 girls find it on the ground. Curiosity gets the better of them, and they open it. Inside is the title, Lovey-Dovey Date Plan to Boost Intimacy. They immediately start reading. The first step is holding Nicole's hand in the lavender field. Next comes a snack, followed by a boat ride. The final page even contains plans for a song dedicated to her. The girls find the whole thing hilarious. Unfortunately, Chaos is nearby and hears everything. His face goes pale as he realizes his secret romance manual has become public entertainment. Nicole soon approaches and notices his miserable expression. She asks if something is wrong, but he insists that he is fine. She suggests ending the outing early, but he refuses and insists on escorting her instead. Nicole smiles and suggests visiting an exhibit nearby. He gladly agrees. Later, they stop at a cafe. Nicole enjoys her tea and thanks him for bringing her there. Chaos finally feels that the date is recovering. Before they leave, he calls her name and becomes serious. He apologizes for how he treated her before last year. He admits that he always left the responsibility of maintaining their relationship to her. He never made an effort to invite her to events such as the Traders Market or the Flower Festival. Even this year, he failed to invite her properly. He promises that when the Flower Festival arrives, he will come for her himself. Nicole looks surprised but quietly agrees. Chaos notices her uneasy expression and asks whether she truly does not want to go. She quickly assures him that is not the problem. The festival simply reminds her of something Claude said about Mattia. She explains that Claude seems to believe his fiancée would be happier with someone else. Chaos's expression changes when he hears how often Nicole has been discussing Claude lately. He asks whether they have become close. Nicole smiles and denies it. Their conversation simply happened to lead there. Yet Claude's words leave her thinking. If she studies abroad, she will not be here for next year's flower festival. Perhaps Chaos only wants to give her one more happy memory before she leaves. She looks at him quietly and realizes how much he has changed. Until last year, his determination was focused on his studies, the student council, and Princess Caroline. Now, for the first time, he is directing that attention toward her. Yet instead of making Nicole happy, the realization leaves a dull ache in her chest. She remembers how hard she once tried to win his attention. She dressed carefully for him. She prepared for every occasion. She smiled whenever they met. Back then, he barely noticed. Now he finally gives her the attention she once longed for. Somehow, it no longer feels special. It only reminds her of how painfully late it has come. And that concludes the video. Make sure to leave a comment below and subscribe. Thank you God for this incredible day in life. Everything happens for a reason.